Emma sweated through her sheets, clutching her head in pure agony. She was trapped inside another nightmare. The masked man in black appeared again, walking down the empty hospital corridor, stalking her like a silent ghost. Over in the actual hospital wing, Ryan was wrapped in layers of bandages, lying in bed motionless like a mummy. The masked stalker from her dreams was standing right over his pillow now. He pulled out a syringe filled with blue poison, his eyes flashing with pure malice. "You're a joke compared to your ancestor," the man sneered down at Ryan. "You're useless now, so you don't need to exist anymore." With a cold glare, he pushed the poison straight into Ryan's Afif line. Ryan thrashed around in pure panic, weakly choking out two words, "Nadia." That was it. The man under the mask was Ethan, her trusted business partner. A ruthless corporate game in the modern world turned out to be a bloody hunt from the past. Right at that moment, Emma screamed and woke up in her bed. Everything in her nightmare became crystal clear. She finally saw the eyes of her killer. She would recognize that look anywhere. Hands shaking, she grabbed her phone, who immediately dialed Ethan's number. But the automated voice said his phone was off, making the dark room feel even more suffocating. As she sat there feeling completely hopeless, a gentle knock on her door broke the silence. It was Ethan, bringing instant relief. He walked into the room carefully, sitting on the edge of her mattress. "Get some rest," he whispered softly. "I'll stay right here with you all night." Emma wrapped herself tightly in the blanket, looking at the man who protected her. The heavy weight in her chest lifted a little. She stared into his eyes and asked tentatively, "Ethan, do you believe in time travel?" You might wonder why Ethan hated her so much, or what kind of blood debt they shared. Flashback to a few weeks ago, Emma was stretching on her yoga mat, mocking Chloe while she read some files. The loved and blind girl saw Ethan as a savior, praising his business skills and his success. Ryan sat nearby with a conflicted face, but Emma's eyes just turned ice-gen cold. She had already run a background check on Ethan. The guy had zero business sense in this era, who couldn't even keep a basic job after college. She didn't promote him because she trusted him. She was playing a high-stakes royal game, letting her enemy climb high just to let him fall. She wanted him to show his true colors so she could crush him completely in one move. Later in the private library, Emma kept teasing her stepdaughter, joking that the men around her were trash. Chloe snapped back in pure frustration, accusing Emma of playing both sides with Ethan on her left and Ryan on her right. Emma didn't get angry at all. She just smiled flirtatiously and teased back, offering to give Ryan away to her, which made Chloe blush and back down instantly. When Ryan accused her of being too cold to the girl, Emma showed her true exhaustion over tea. She let out a bitter laugh and told him, "In my past life, I gave my child everything. Oh, what did I get in return? A cup of deadly poison from my own son." That was why she wanted Chloe to choose her own path, to hit rock bottom and learn from the pain. Meanwhile, Ryan checked the security feeds, who finally locked onto the stalker's body shape. Emma clenched her fists tightly, her eyes flashing with her old royal fury. I would know him even if he turned to ash. Today, the debts of 2 lifetimes were going to be settled in a dark room. The camera cut to a sudden brutal scene. Emma was tied up tightly to a wooden chair with heavy ropes cutting into her skin. Ethan stood in front of her, swirling a wineglass. In their past life during the Great Dynasty, Ethan was the legendary imperial tutor, while Emma was the untouchable empress. They used to be a beautiful couple by the lake, sharing secret smiles in the royal garden. She had given him a handmade silk pouch, while he held her close, promising forever. But now, Ethan looked like a complete lunatic, his face twisted in pure rage. He grabbed her by the throat, screaming wildly. "You promised me forever," he roared. "Why did you choose the palace and another man?" Emma choked, tears streaming down her face as she gasped out her biggest secret. Her family had lost everything back then. She was forced into the palace just to survive, doing whatever it took to stay alive. She only made him the prince's tutor so she could catch a glimpse of him through the heavy walls of the Forbidden Palace. But Ethan was already consumed by jealousy. He let out a roar like a wounded animal. "Why are you apologizing apologizing to me now? Why? He leaned in closer, demanding an answer. Did that golden throne mean more to you than all the love I gave you? Then he delivered the most painful blow. He whispered a dark truth into her ear. Every rumor that ruined her past life, every lie that accused her of treason, sin, and even the plot that made her son poison her. It was all orchestrated by Ethan himself. A mastermind behind her brutal death was the man she had loved the most. Ethan let out a loud, crazy laugh and let go, walking away with one final threat. I won't let you have a good life in this era. Watch me ruin your daughter's life completely. Emma collapsed back against the chair, helpless. Her modern career and her past trauma merged into a deadly trap around her. The ancient feud wrapped itself around the modern world. Ethan stood in the long corporate hallway, taking an old box from a quiet maid. Inside were the silk pouches embroidered by the Empress. The second his fingers touched the green silk, memories of the past flooded his mind. He remembered the heavy storm in the old world, holding her dead body in his arms, weeping bitterly. He couldn't understand why she sacrificed her life for her family, only to be poisoned by her son who left out in the open like garbage. He had screamed in the ruins, ripping his hair out, hating the cruel fate of their past life. But back in the modern hotel room, that old love turned into suffocating hatred. Ethan held a heavy rope with a cold stare, wrapping it tightly around Emma's neck while she slept. Emma woke up choking, fighting for her life, but Ethan looked like a completely different person. His eyes were blood-zan red as he pinned her down, pulling the thick rope with all his strength. You killed me once in the past, he screamed. I'm never letting you walk away this time. At the edge of life and death, Emma used the very last bit of her strength to gasp out a name, Ryan. Right before she completely blacked out, the heavy hotel door was kicked open violently. Ryan burst in like a god of war in his sharp suit, tackling Ethan right off her bed. Ethan dodged just in time, getting slashed on the arm as he stumbled back into the corner. Bleeding, Ryan stood firmly in front of Emma, his voice shaking with absolute rage. He cursed Ethan for forgetting her past kindness, reminding him how she fought for the nation, only to be betrayed and poisoned by his lies. Hearing this, Emma stared at her savior, finally recognizing the soul behind his eyes. Are you General Ryan? She whispered. Ryan turned around and pulled her into his arms, holding her fragile body tightly as tears fell. We parted on the battlefield, he wept. I never thought I'd hold you again after all these years. After the storm passed, they sat together, staring at the mysterious coral bracelet on the table. Ryan analyzed the situation calmly, knowing the artifacts tied their fates together. Their conversation exposed her hidden feelings. If she truly didn't care about Ryan, why did she spare his life so many times in the past? But just as they thought they had answers, a new danger sneaked up on them. Ethan brought Emma a lunchbox himself, so she ate it without hesitating at all. She knew if he really wanted to kill her here, she would have died a dozen times already. But Ethan's ambition went way beyond her. He turned his sights on the young heiress, Chloe. Clueless about the danger, Chloe ran into his room, completely unaware she was walking into a trap. Ethan handed her a glass of water with a smile, as she drank it all down without thinking. The next second, the room started spinning, her body went completely limp. Ethan caught her with a dark, twisted laugh, whispering a massive secret into her ear. The mastermind behind everything was never a stranger, he sneered. It was Emma all along. He lied to her, making her believe a trap while she blindly trusted him like an idiot. With a wicked smile, he laid her on the bed. Past debts and modern corporate games crossed paths. Who will survive this final round? After Ethan murdered Ryan in the hospital, the corporate war turned into a bloody nightmare. But the clueless Chloe was sitting in a car, kissing the killer passionately without a care. Ethan fed her lines about living a wild romance, so the loved and blind girl fell for it completely. When he set their wedding date for next month, she blushed and agreed with a happy smile, clueless that she was walking off a cliff. Later, Chloe walked back into the office, carrying bags of expensive designer clothes. She rolled her eyes the second she saw Emma, but Emma didn't start a fight this time. She swallowed her pride and spoke softly. If you leave Ethan, she offered gently, I will cut ties with Ryan completely. I will stay by your side forever. It was a heartbreaking sacrifice from a mother willing to trade her own happiness for the girl. But the brainwashed Chloe didn't care at all. She threw a business proposal in Emma's face, mocking her for being selfish and delusional. With a cold laugh, she dragged Ethan away, leaving Emma alone on the sofa, devastated. As Ethan stood outside, flashing an evil grin, the ultimate storm finally hit the company. Inside the quiet tea room, Ryan looked grim. "Ethan is moving fast behind the scenes," he said. "He is turning the shareholders against us, but the senior partners are pulling their funds." The entire empire was falling apart overnight. Emma kept her head down, looking exhausted. She knew Ethan was doing all this for the money, but that he held a deadly secret over Chloe. Ryan stared at her with a sharp look. "Chloe's biggest vulnerability right now is no longer the trash," he pointed out. "It is you, Emma." Emma let out a bitter, self-deprecating laugh. "I never thought I'd become her weak spot," she sighed. Looking at the woman carrying the weight of 2 lives, Ryan didn't say another word. He just sat across from her, staring deeply, his eyes filled with pure love and devotion. It was a promise of protection across 1,000 years. Before they could even catch their breath, the conference room door was slammed open. A tall, glamorous woman walked in, wearing expensive clothes and a haughty look. She crossed her arms, staring down at Emma. "The old boss sure had interesting taste," she snickered. "No wonder Ryan likes you so much." Ignoring the angry stares from the 2 women, she stepped closer, clicking her high heels. Then came the most shocking twist of the day. Right in front of Emma's face, the woman grabbed Ryan's arm tightly, introducing herself as his overseas fiancée Nadia. The meeting room instantly turned into a war zone. Nadia acted like she owned the place, looking down her nose at Emma. "As an elder, you must agree with me, right?" she asked. Chloe, wanting to make things worse, snickered loudly. "Is it just me, or does it smell trashy in here?" she yelled. The insult made Nadia's face turn bright green. Right as Nadia tried to humiliate Emma further, the ancient empress finally decided to strike. Emma didn't lose her temper at all. She walked up slowly behind Nadia with a cold smile, gently fixing the girl's messy hair with her fingers. Then she leaned down, whispering in Nadia's ear. "If you want to stay in this house, shut up," she whispered in a chilling tone. "If you don't like it, get the hell out." The pure, terrifying authority of a ruler crushed Nadia's confidence in an instant. Pale as a ghost, she couldn't say a single word, turning around and running out of the office in shame. Emma turned her cold eyes to Chloe and Ethan. All her gentleness vanished in a second. "What are you looking at?" She barked at them. "Get back to work right now." The ultimate showdown ended in total victory for the Empress. But with Ethan closing in on the company, a crazy ex-gen fiancé causing drama, can Emma and Ryan survive this mess? The real corporate battle was just getting started. A glamorous rival appeared, but the powerful CEO was ready for the counterattack. Inside the office, Emma looked serious, staring at her lawyer with a sharp question. "So you have a brother?" she asked coldly. Ryan looked like a kid caught doing something bad, lowering his head and admitting the truth. Emma pushed further, a hint of jealousy in her voice. "Did you agree to marry Nadia just to protect me?" Ryan started pacing around the room nervously, quickly stopping to deny the accusation. "No, Nadia came here entirely on her own," he pleaded. "Even if my dad breaks us apart, I'll never marry her." Seeing him panic, Emma secretly smiled. Ryan noticed her looking and walked over confused. Emma raised her chin with a playful look. "I actually thought you'd listen to your father," she teased. Ryan answered with total honesty. "I'm a lawyer. I will never break my morals." Hearing his sincere words, Emma's icy mood melted away. She stood up elegantly and walked right to him. Even if he wasn't the exact general from her past, his loyalty and love completely won her heart. Ryan stared deeply into her eyes, making a promise. "I will make you fall in love with me again," he whispered. They held each other tightly under the moonlight, but the corporate drama never stopped. The next day at lunch, the spoiled heiress walked into the office like she owned the place. Emma and Ryan were eating their meal, with Nadia's homemade lunchbox sitting on the table. Chloe purposely grabbed the milk from the box, taking a sip, praising the food just to annoy Emma. Emma watched the show with a cold stare, while Ryan ignored Chloe completely, putting food on Emma's plate. The atmosphere turned incredibly awkward. Nadia sat sat across from them, glaring at Emma in rage. Chloe didn't tolerate her attitude at all, slamming the table. "Get the hell out of my building if you don't like it," she yelled. Seeing she couldn't win the argument, Nadia went low, launching a personal attack against Chloe. "Do you call her stepmom?" Nadia sneered maliciously. "Or just your father's little side chick?" The insult set the entire room on fire. Emma and Chloe slammed their hands down. Standing up, Chloe lunged forward like a tiger, slapping Nadia across the face with a loud pop. "Keep your trashy mouth shut," Chloe Tobacco screamed. The office turned into a violent catfight. Knowing how dangerous angry women could be, Ryan grabbed Emma by her waist, pulling her out of the battlefield instantly. Nadia, looking like a total mess, chased after them. "Ryan, they beat me up. Aren't you doing anything?" she cried. "I'm telling your father about this." Ryan didn't even bother to turn his head around. "Go ahead and tell him," he stated coldly, "and tell him our engagement is officially over." Leaving the furious Nadia exploding in the hallway, Ryan walked away with his arm around Emma. It felt absolutely amazing. Down the hall, they ran into their biggest client. Mr. Chang smiled warmly, shaking Ryan's hand. "Great working with you guys," he laughed loudly. "You two look absolutely perfect together. Make sure to invite me to the wedding." Facing the unexpected support from their client, Emma and Ryan blushed, though they were thrilled inside. Later that night, the moon was bright and beautiful. They walked side by side down a quiet park path. Emma let out a tired sigh, asking casually, "Why didn't you explain why Nadia was in your car today?" Ryan stopped walking, looking at her with total devotion. "If she got in my car, she would have started trouble," he said. "You are the only woman in my heart, Emma." Emma burst out laughing, calling him a tease. Ryan took the chance, grabbing her hand under the stars, their fingers locked together tightly, never letting go. After 2 lifetimes of betrayal and pain, they finally cleared the air in the modern world, ready to live their perfect happy ending. In front of everyone, Emma spun around, slapping Ryan's hand away from her waist. She frowned, scolding him in a low voice, reminding him he shouldn't act fresh in public, but Ryan didn't back down, a smile touching his lips. "I'm just happy you finally care about me, Emma." Emma quickly looked away, her voice turning cold. "The only person I care about is Nadia, not you." Turning back, she saw his smug smile and got furious, stomping out of the room in a huff. Seeing her walk away, Ryan rushed forward, grabbing her arm tightly with a pleading look. "Please stay and keep me company," he begged. Emma stopped, raising her chin with a cold laugh. "If I stay, you're the one who is going to lose," she warned. Ryan stepped even closer, leaning down to her ear. "I don't mind losing to you," he whispered playfully. "It wouldn't be the first time, right?" The scene cut to an open green field later. Ryan held his phone, looking serious as he dealt with Nadia, telling her clearly on the line to leave the city. "I don't want anything upsetting Emma again," he warned. When he returned to the desk, Emma was waiting. "I heard you were traveling with Nadia tomorrow," she mocked. "Now that she is gone, who is going with you?" Truth was, a massive fight had happened earlier. Nadia had slammed her resignation letter on his desk, demanding he sign the papers right then. Ryan didn't hesitate, signing his name immediately. This completely broke Nadia's heart, turning her furious. "Why are you nice to everyone except me?" she cried out. "Why do you treat me with so much ice?" Ryan didn't even lift his eyes from his work. "Because the others don't have delusions," he said flatly. Nadia let out a bitter laugh and left the room for good, but the woman wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, while Ryan was still asleep, Emma walked into his room with a dark face. The television was broadcasting a live press conference. Nadia was standing in front of the cameras, announcing that Ryan had proposed to her last night. The news left Emma feeling betrayed and angry. The second Ryan woke up, he ran to Emma's bed, grabbing her hand to explain the situation. "The news is completely fake, I swear," he pleaded. To clear his name, Ryan called his own press conference. Standing tall under the flashing media lights, he spoke into the microphone with absolute conviction. "I am never marrying Nadia," he declared to the world. Still, the emotional drama was breaking him down. That night, he sat alone in a dark bar downing drinks. A strange woman in a black dress walked up, leaning her body against him and touching his hand. "Did you get dumped, handsome?" she teased. "Let me help you forget about her tonight." Ryan felt pure disgust, throwing her hand off him. He slammed a stack of $100 bills on the table. "Get lost," he roared at her. He stumbled out into the dark street, holding a bottle, bending over in pain from all the alcohol. Right during his weakest moment, Emma ran up to him, asking if he was okay with a worried face. She gently reached out, holding his body up with love. Back at the Grand Press Hall, Nadia completely snapped, screaming at Ryan at the top of her lungs. "Are you insane, Ryan? Giving up your inheritance? What about the merger between our families?" Lucas ignored her completely, turning around and falling to his knees right in front of his father. He begged his father to forgive his stubborn choice, declaring out loud that Emma was his only love. "If you force me to leave her," Ryan threatened, "I don't care about the family empire anymore." His father's face turned purple with rage, slamming the table. "If you won't marry Nadia, your brother will," the old man roared. But the old man never expected his second son to stand up too, announcing he was giving up his inheritance as well. The younger brother held Chloe's hand firmly, telling his father they had already married overseas. "Nobody is breaking us apart," the brother declared. The sudden twists left the father clutching his chest, speechless. Emma, Chloe, and the brothers smiled at each other. "So you guys were just buying time for us to register," Chloe laughed. Emma looked at Ryan, a beautiful smile on her face. "Now nobody can stop us from being together," she whispered. The two couples held their lovers' hands tightly, walking out of the hall under the flashing cameras, leaving the old man screaming in total despair behind them. What goes around comes around. Even the arrogant Brandon had his judgment day. A critical project in New York had just completely collapsed. His father ripped into him over the phone. Humiliated, Brandon had to pull over by the curb. He was forced to swallow his pride and go apologize to Chloe. Meanwhile, Ethan was the picture of calm. He strolled down the hallway carrying a basket of freshly washed apples. Everything was going exactly according to his plan. He was the one who pulled the strings to make Brandon's father freeze him out. Brandon and Amber were frantically looking around outside the venue. The housekeeper rushed inside to warn Chloe. Chloe's expression didn't change at all. She coldly told her staff that she didn't want to see either of them. With those annoying pests dealt with, the gala setup was in full swing. Chloe moved gracefully through a sea of flowers in her couture dress. Unable to see Chloe, Brandon took all his rage out on Amber. He shoved Amber roughly and screamed at her to get the hell out. Amber didn't even get mad. She just flashed a wicked smirk. She mocked Brandon for not knowing Chloe was about to belong to someone else. She taunted him, asking why his projects always tanked whenever he chased Chloe. She claimed it was all because of the boy toy pursuing Chloe. At that moment, Chloe was sitting quietly in the VIP seat. She knew exactly how much dirty work Amber had done behind her back, and Brandon had simply used Amber as a shield for his own selfishness. As she drifted into her thoughts, Ethan approached her in a sharp suit. He pulled out an elegant gift box containing a breathtaking necklace. Ethan looked into her eyes and lied, saying it was just a gala souvenir. Chloe looked down and gasped. This wasn't a souvenir, it was the priceless heart of the ocean, a piece that symbolized eternal devotion. Tears welled up in Chloe's eyes as she felt the depth of his love, but the romance didn't last long before thick smoke filled the hall. Terrified screams of fire broke out everywhere. Ethan's face fell, and he instantly shielded Chloe behind his back. He pushed her toward the exit and told her to run outside. Then he ran back into the smoke to find Auntie Lily. The heavy smoke completely blinded everyone. Chloe covered her nose and mouth, struggling to escape, but she had no idea a predator was waiting for her in the dark. A masked man in black suddenly lunged at her. He pressed a drug towel over Chloe's mouth. Chloe fought back with everything she had, but she lost consciousness. A bucket of ice-jan cold water suddenly splashed over her head. Chloe gasped awake, finding herself tied tightly to a chair in a warehouse. She was soaking wet and completely trapped. Standing right in front of her with the empty bucket was Amber. Chloe glared at her through gritted teeth, telling her she was insane. Instead of fighting, Amber suddenly dropped to her knees. She started crying fake tears, begging Chloe to make Brandon sign the contract. Looking at this desperate woman, Chloe felt nothing but disgust. She saw right through the act and flatly refused. Seeing her tears didn't work, Amber finally dropped the innocent act. She rolled up her sleeves, revealing horrifying bruises on her arms. She screamed hysterically that her father did this to her. She threatened Chloe to make Ethan spare her family business. Facing the manic Amber, Chloe didn't show a single hint of fear. She let out a cold laugh, cutting Amber down with her words. She mocked Amber for being nothing but a pathetic pawn to her family. This completely pushed Amber over the edge. She flew into a rage and choked Chloe with all her strength. Chloe's face turned red as she fought for her life. As she suffocated, Chloe's mind flashed back to before the gala. Back then, Ethan had handed her a fresh red apple with a warm smile. He had told her it was clean and safe to eat. Back then, she bit into the sweet apple, radiating pure happiness. Ethan had smiled tenderly, placing the heart of the ocean around her neck. Ethan's devotion was the salvation she never got from Brandon. Amber, did you really think your madness could destroy everything? Ethan, the true heir who actually treasures Chloe, will crush your final desperate attempt and save her from this hell. Inside the grim abandoned warehouse, the air was suffocatingly tense. Brandon and a squad of bodyguards blocked the main entrance. His eyes were locked onto Ethan. Ethan was carefully holding the fragile Chloe in his arms. Brandon completely snapped, yelling with bloodshot eyes to give his girlfriend back. Hearing this, Ethan let out a mocking laugh. He looked down at Brandon and said, "Chloe dumped you a long time ago. Now she is mine." Brandon tried to charge forward but was blocked by Ethan's security. Ethan didn't even bother with his tantrums. He looked down at Chloe, his voice turning incredibly soft. He gently asked her if she wanted to speak to Brandon. Chloe leaned against Ethan's shoulder, refusing to even look at her ex. She weakly but firmly uttered two words, "I don't." Brandon squeezed a red ring box inside his pocket until his knuckles turned white. Seeing Chloe reject him so completely, reality faded into recent memories. The brutal truth behind this kidnapping was finally laid bare. Right in this warehouse, Chloe had been tied to that chair. Amber had choked her like a maniac, screaming in her face. She blamed Chloe for making Brandon despise her and for her family abandoning her. Amber was consumed by jealousy, cursing Chloe that she would always be a pawn. But as Amber unleashed her hatred, she noticed the necklace on Chloe. She ripped it off, and when she saw the pendant, she froze. It was the legendary Heart of the Ocean. Amber's eyes widened in shock as she realized who bought it at the auction. The mystery billionaire who spent a fortune on Chloe was Ethan. This realization completely burned away Amber's sanity. She screamed that Chloe didn't deserve it. She mocked Chloe for being a gold digger who hooked a billionaire. Furious, Amber grabbed a heavy rope and whipped Chloe mercilessly. The brutal sounds of the rope echoed through the warehouse. Despite the violent assault, Chloe was covered in wounds, but she didn't make a sound, only looking at Amber with pure contempt. She weakly but fiercely snapped back that Ethan would never look at Amber, and Brandon didn't want her either. This truth hit Amber right where it hurt. Amber laughed hysterically and kicked Chloe's chair flat to the ground. Chloe crashed hard onto the floor, unable to fight back. But Amber wasn't done. She grabbed Chloe by her hair. She pinned Chloe's head to the dirt and choked her again. Chloe was suffocating, gasping for air in pure agony. Right at the brink of death, the warehouse doors were slammed open. A beam of sunlight cut through the dark as Ethan burst in like a savior. Seeing a bloodied Chloe pinned to the ground, Ethan's eyes turned red. Ethan rushed forward and kicked Amber away with absolute fury. He trembled as he scooped the battered Chloe into his arms. Looking at her bruised face, Ethan was filled with heartbreak and guilt. He choked up, whispering that he was so sorry he was late. Back to the present, Ethan held Chloe tight, ignoring Brandon shouting. He whispered to her softly, "Let's go home." Brandon watched Ethan take her away and tried to play the history card. Ethan stopped in his tracks and turned around with a killer glare. He snapped that this had nothing to do with Amber and ordered his men to move. With that, he carried Chloe out of that filthy place without looking back. The moment Ethan left, left. Guards dragged the screaming Amber inside. The second Amber saw Brandon, she begged him to save her, but all she got was Brandon's iced and cold stare. Brandon grabbed her shoulders and demanded to know if she kidnapped Chloe. Amber tried to lie, but Brandon snapped and slapped her across the face. Amber was stunned, but then she started laughing like a lunatic. She mocked Brandon for taking his frustration out on her because his ex was gone. She taunted him that Chloe now had a far better man by her side. This completely broke Brandon's remaining sanity. He lunged forward and choked Amber, screaming with bloodshot eyes. Then he threw her to the ground with total disgust. Amber collapsed in tears as Brandon walked away, leaving her in despair. After surviving the nightmare, Chloe returned home safely. Her mother broke down in tears seeing the bruises on her daughter's face. The next morning, sunlight filled the cozy living room. Chloe changed into a fresh dress, standing quietly in the room. Ethan walked out of the kitchen wearing a cozy cream knit vest. He was happily carrying a plate of fresh, steaming pancakes. He walked up to Chloe with a warm smile, telling her breakfast was ready. Chloe was touched, asking why he cooked for her personally. Ethan pulled out a chair for her, looking at her healing bruises. He joked half-jan seriously that as her suitor, it was his job to spoil her. He added that her ex was a monster for leaving her with such trauma. Hearing the words suitor and ex, Chloe's eyes dimmed. She looked down, her voice carrying a heavy weight. She asked him if he knew why she kept turning him down. Ethan saw the deep fear and insecurity in her eyes. He gently reached out and stroked her hair. With absolute devotion, he told her not to fear, he would restore her faith and love. Ethan's warmth felt like a current melting the ice around Chloe's heart. Later, Ethan walked to the front gate and spotted a miserable Brandon lingering outside. Back in her room, Chloe sat alone on the bed, hugging a teddy bear. Her phone buzzed with a few urgent voice notes from her assistant. The assistant quickly explained what happened. She said Brandon messaged her, begging to say sorry to Chloe. Brandon promised to punish Amber and make sure she never bothered Chloe again. After listening, Chloe looked at the photo frame by her bed. It was a happy picture of her and her mother at a carousel. Looking at it, Chloe's eyes welled up with tears torn inside. She whispered to herself, asking her mom if she should love again. She knew Ethan was different, but she was still terrified. Ultimately, Chloe walked into the living room to face Brandon. With a completely blank face, she coldly told him to just say his piece. Facing Chloe again, Brandon had lost all his old arrogance. He looked small and anxious, stammering through his words. He swore he never meant to keep her money. He claimed he was just trying to help her save for their wedding. He begged for forgiveness, blaming Amber for poisoning his mind. Brandon got emotional, raising 3 fingers to swear an oath as tears fell. Hearing this pathetic confession, Chloe couldn't help but laugh out loud. She saw right through his hypocrisy. She mocked him for wrapping his abuse in the excuse of doing it for her own good, and for putting all the blame onto Amber. Exposed and pale, Brandon scrambled to defend himself. Chloe cut him off coldly, saying she heard his apology and told him to leave. Seeing her turn away, Brandon panicked completely. He lunged forward and grabbed her wrist, begging her to stay. Chloe stopped and stared at his hand, warning him to back off. With a sharp jerk, she slammed his hand away. The moment she turned around, Brandon played his absolute last card. His knees buckled and he dropped to one knee before her. He pulled a ring box from his pocket and snapped it open, revealing a diamond. With a desperate, almost manic obsession, he begged her to marry him. Looking at the diamond ring, Chloe only felt a deep sense of irony. She had given Brandon 7 long years of her life. In those 7 years, she had never received a single gift from him. Yet here he was, offering a lavish ring only after they broke up. As the air turned freezing cold, the front door swung open and Ethan walked in. He glanced at the scene and immediately exposed the truth about the ring. He brought up what happened at the luxury auction days ago. Brandon had fiercely bid against Ethan for a multi-million-dollar necklace, but Brandon chickened out at the final moment. Ethan mocked him, asking if he just hated spending real money on Chloe. Exposed in public, Brandon exploded in a defensive rage. He screamed that Chloe didn't even deserve a $1,000,000 necklace. He claimed a basic diamond ring was already more than enough for her. Ethan let out a cold laugh and shut him down. He told Brandon that he never truly respected Chloe and he never loved her. Brandon knew he lost the argument, but he still tried to grab Chloe, but after surviving death, Chloe's heart was entirely dead to him. With tears of rage, she listed every single way his selfishness ruined her life. She shouted that she didn't love him anymore, and they were finished. When Brandon tried to push further, Ethan stepped between them. Right then, Chloe stepped around Brandon and looked at Ethan with tears in her eyes. She softly told Ethan that she had made up her mind about his proposal. While Brandon watched in absolute shock, Chloe walked right into Ethan's arms. They shared a deep, passionate kiss right in front of everyone. This kiss was a final goodbye to the past and a welcome to a new life. Chloe confessed her love openly, asking him to be her man. Watching them hold hands, Brandon looked completely destroyed. But the drama wasn't over yet. As Chloe walked out the front gates, a battered figure suddenly threw herself at her. It was Amber, looking completely ruined. She was sobbing hysterically, begging Chloe to save her. She wept that Brandon had gone completely insane. She said Brandon was forcing her to face her abusive father to clear his own name. Seeing her cause a scene, Ethan's eyes turned cold and he signaled his guards. Ignoring her screams, the guards dragged Amber away and threw her into a black limo. Sitting in the dim back seat was a brooding Brandon. Karma had finally come around, and Amber was consumed by her own malice. As the limo sped away, Ethan wrapped his arms around the shaken Chloe. Chloe leaned into his chest and let out a long sigh of relief. As long as Ethan was there, she felt completely safe. Seeing Amber fall so low, Chloe couldn't help but feel a bit reflective. Ethan just smiled warmly, taking her hand to show her something. He pulled out a stunning, shimmering necklace from behind his back. Chloe gasped as she realized it was the multi-million-dollar heart of the ocean. She asked in disbelief, wondering how it was fixed after Amber broke it. Ethan smiled dotingly, calling her silly and saying he had it repaired immediately. Ethan carefully placed the necklace around her neck. Overwhelmed with emotion, Chloe wrapped her arms around him under the green trees. Not long after, the estate was beautifully decorated with endless flowers. Today was the day of their fairy tale wedding. Chloe wore a breathtaking, shimmering white bridal gown. She looked like an angel walking down the aisle with a dashing Ethan. With tears of joy in his eyes, Ethan dropped to one knee before his bride. He held up the ring and delivered his vow to the crowd. He promised to spend the rest of his life protecting her happiness. Chloe smiled through her tears and happily reached out her hand. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed amidst the roaring applause. Meanwhile, across the city, a dark room was littered with empty bottles. Brandon sat on the floor, looking completely broken, chugging beer. A bruised Amber walked up to him with a venomous smirk. She slammed a bright red wedding invitation onto his face. She laughed maliciously, mocking him that Chloe married Ethan today. Brandon picked up the invitation with trembling hands, staring at Ethan's name, as Amber's manic laughter echoed in his ears. The toxic exes sank completely into their own living hell. Left with nothing but eternal regret and agony, they reached their miserable end. She was too stunned to speak. Under the jaw-dropped stares of their classmates, he led her out of the room. The news of the Apex CEO's return spread through the business world like wildfire. The corporate cleanup had just begun. When Chloe and Lily returned to the Apex lobby, they ran right into Amber, the spoiled heiress who ran wild in the office. Amber held her head high, instantly switching into bully mode. Look who it is, a jobless loser with zero background. How do you still have the nerve to loiter in the Apex lobby? But before she could finish laughing, Tristan walked in, wearing a flawless regal suit surrounded by a crowd of top executives. Amber's eyes lit up. This was her crush, her Tristan. Her sharp face instantly turned into a fake smile, and she scurried over to greet him. But Tristan didn't give her a single glance. He walked right past her, while Amber stood there, frozen. He reached out with pure tenderness and wrapped his arm around Chloe's shoulder. Tristan turned around, his sharp eyes scanning the room. His voice echoed through the entire lobby. Listen up, everyone. Chloe is not an outsider. She is my lawfully wedded wife, and she is the future executive assistant of Apex. Those words dropped Amber straight into a living nightmare. Amber shook her head, pale and hysterical. She pointed at Chloe, screaming in denial. That's impossible. Your mother is bringing me to your house tonight to discuss our marriage. How could you marry a commoner? She screamed like a crazy person, demanding to see a marriage certificate. Meanwhile, Warren, the corrupt manager standing nearby, looked at the ordinary guy he used to bully. The guy had just turned into the mysterious ultimate boss of the company. Warren broke into a cold sweat, his legs gave out, and he dropped straight to his knees. Tristan didn't waste any breath on Amber's desperate denial. He turned deeply toward Chloe, whose eyes were filled with tears of emotion. He cupped her face with both hands, right under Amber's burning, jealous glare, and in front of every employee, he leaned down and kissed her deeply. That passionate kiss was the most powerful, undeniable proof of marriage. Amber completely lost her mind. With a twisted face, she raised her hand, screaming Chloe's name, rushing forward to scratch her face. Tristan's eyes turned iced and cold. He brutally slapped her hand away, shoving her to the ground effortlessly. Amber, don't push me, or I'll have security blacklist your entire family globally and throw you out of Apex like a dead dog. Seeing his world collapse, Warren, the manager, started slapping his own face. He crawled to Chloe's feet like a dog, bowing and crying for mercy. Tristan looked down at him coldly, passing his final judgment. You're fired. The corporate war was won, but the second battle inside the mansion had just begun. That evening, in the luxury living room, Chloe sat elegantly next to the powerful matriarch. Amber, refusing to give up, had brought Tristan's elitist, snobbish mother. They sat across the couch, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Chloe sat by Grandma's side, sipping her tea gracefully. She smiled warmly, hiding a needle in her words. Grandma, I heard Miss Amber knows a lot about tea. If Mother loves green tea, Miss Amber should definitely brew it herself. After all, in the green tea department, Miss Amber is the biggest expert. The phrase hit right where it hurt, insinuating Amber was a fake, toxic girl. Amber and Tristan's mother started shaking with rage. Amber couldn't take it and jumped up shouting, but Chloe just acted like an innocent rabbit, covering her mouth in surprise. Oh, Miss Amber, I just meant you have a fresh aroma like green tea. Why so emotional? Tristan, watching his wife dominate, almost burst out laughing on the spot. With the situation spinning out of control, Tristan's bitter mother decided to drop all pleasantries to defend her precious Amber. She smiled coldly, setting down her teacup, and cruelly exposed Chloe's family background. She mocked Chloe's poor upbringing, stating her mother was stuck in a hospital and her brother was a bankrupt gambler. She looked down at Chloe with pure contempt. You're just a gold Zen digger, trying to use a pregnancy to force your way into high society. Amber sat beside her, smirking and nodding along. Chloe lowered her head, as the high Zan class humiliation threatened to shatter her dignity. Right at that critical moment, the matriarch, the true power of the family, slammed her teacup down with a loud clink. Grandma glared at her bitter daughter Zan in Zan Law, then gently but firmly grabbed Chloe's hand. In front of the whole family, she announced with absolute power, enough. No matter how much Chloe suffered in the past, she is now a member of this family. She is my granddaughter Zan in Zan Law, and I will never let her suffer a single insult under my roof. Then, under the envious stares of Mother and Amber, Grandma slowly took off a jade bracelet. It was a flawless, priceless family heirloom. Gently, she slipped it onto Chloe's wrist. Grandma patted her hand, sealing the deal. This is my welcome gift to you. It represents your undeniable status as the true lady of this house. Amber, now looking like a total clown, stared at the bracelet that symbolized ultimate status. Her eyes welled with tears. She looked at Tristan, whose face remained frozen. Tristan, do you really have no old feelings left? Facing this wicked woman's last attempt, Tristan finally stood up with a cold chuckle. His blade Zan-like gaze locked onto Amber. With a freezing voice, he revealed the dark truth of that rainy night. Tristan took a deep breath, demanding an answer. A few nights ago, the Apex CEO got into a fatal car crash on the roadside. He was covered in blood in the pouring rain, begging you for help. Miss Amber, what did you do? It turned out Amber had driven by in her luxury car, facing Tristan, who was clinging to life. She didn't just refuse to help. She rolled down her window with pure disgust, cursing him as a dying hobo. She told him to die somewhere else so he wouldn't dirty her expensive car, then hit the gas, splashing him with water. If Chloe hadn't passed by on her scooter and saved his life out of pure kindness, he would be dead by now. Hearing this shocking truth, Tristan's mother gasped, covering her mouth. Chloe finally put the piece pieces together. Amber, dripping in cold sweat, collapsed onto the couch, completely ruined. After surviving countless trials, the real CEO and his wife finally embraced their happy ending as the truth came to light. The innocent billionaire secret was out, and the overprotective husband was fully unlocked. In the bedroom, Tristan rubbed his hands nervously. His eyes darted around as he leaned into Chloe's ear. Chloe, just hypothetically, if someone hid their identity and lied to you, what would you do? Chloe leaned back on the couch, not even lifting her eyelids, her tone completely casual. If it is not too serious, I'd give him a good beating first. Tristan swallowed hard, pulling his neck back, but kept pushing his luck. What if it's extremely serious? Chloe smiled now, turning to lock eyes with him, her voice dropping into a chilling grin. If it is that serious, I'd beat him until he can't take care of himself, then throw him out of my life permanently. Hearing this, Tristan's smile instantly froze. He looked completely panicked. Seeing his guilty, stuttering behavior, Chloe frowned, demanding to know his little secret. Tristan saw things going south and immediately raised his hands to swear. I swear, I have never dated anyone else. I've never even liked another girl, let alone held hands. Well, except for you. Chloe burst out laughing, pinching his cheek playfully. Wow, look at that. A 30-year gen-old virgin boy. Jokes aside, as Chloe stood up, Tristan's face suddenly turned serious. He slowly pulled out an old photo from his vest. Look, this little boy in the photo is actually me. He handed it to Chloe, revealing the truth. Back then, he didn't break his promise on purpose. He had too many corporate enemies at home, and someone even tried to drown him. To save his life, Grandma had to ship him abroad under a fake name overnight. He only returned recently after things stabilized. I'm sorry, Chloe. I'm back. I'm back to marry you. Tristan's eyes turned red as he pulled Chloe into a tight embrace. Chloe rested against his broad chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. Memories flashed through her mind like a movie. From meeting him in the hospital to getting hired at Apex as an assistant, she suddenly realized everything. Oh my god, all this Godzan level chess playing was this man's doing all along. Chloe crossed her arms, giving him a playful glare. Well, Mr. CEO, quite a mastermind, huh? Tricking me from start to finish, just watching me make a fool of myself. Tristan panicked like a kid who got caught, begging for mercy repeatedly. As long as you're not mad, honey, I'll do whatever you want. Looking at this powerful man who ruled the business world but became so submissive in front of her, and thinking about the hardships he endured, Chloe felt a deep wave of love. She couldn't hold back her emotions anymore. She grabbed Tristan's tie, pulled him down, stepped up on her tiptoes, and kissed his warm lips passionately. Their doubts completely melted away in that kiss. Right then, the bedroom door creaked open. Grandma stood there, her face flushed with excitement, peeking in with a huge, mischievous grin. Chloe blushed instantly and let go of his tie. Grandma didn't feel awkward at all. She faked reaching for the doorknob, giggling. Oh dear, how did this door stay open? I'm just here to close it. Carry on. You two, go to sleep early, and give me a chubby great Zan grandson soon. With a loud thud, she slammed the door shut. Grandma's little interruption completely cleared the heavy emotional air in the room. The next morning, as Chloe walked out, Grandma enthusiastically pulled her to the sofa. She held Chloe's soft hand, loving her more by the second, her eyes gleaming. Chloe, since you and Tristan are already intimate, you two need to hurry up and give me a beautiful great Zan grandson. As for the wedding, don't worry, I'll make sure this boy gives you the most spectacular wedding this city has ever seen. Tristan, wearing a sophisticated vest suit, stood aside obediently. Grandma turned and gave him a stern look. Tristan immediately nodded like a loyal puppy. Don't worry, Grandma, I'll work extra hard. After lecturing her grandson, Grandma turned back, comforting Chloe like a protective mother. Chloe, if this boy ever treats you wrong, you tell me right away. I'll teach him a lesson for you. Chloe smiled shyly, then checked her watch. She stood up gracefully. Grandma, it's getting late. I have to get to the office. Grandma instantly felt bad for her. Oh, why do you still have to work? Isn't it nice to just relax at home as a wealthy lady? Tristan stepped up, explaining gently that this was Chloe's own choice. Chloe looked at Grandma, sharing her true thoughts. Grandma, I want to shine in the corporate world through my own hard work. I don't want to be a trophy wife, locked in a golden cage. Hearing this, Grandma's eyes filled with genuine respect. She waved her hand proudly. Excellent, that's a true lady of our family. As long as you like it, you have my full support. Just one thing, don't overwork yourself. The one thing our family has plenty of is cash. But the moment Chloe stepped into Apex, she was met with a toxic corporate ambush. Inside the office, Lana, the newly hired director, leaned back in her leather chair. She took Chloe's proposal without even looking up. Her words were sharp and malicious. Chloe, I don't know what dirty tricks you used to crawl back here after getting fired, but since you're at Apex, make yourself useful. Don't be a useless parasite. Chloe remained calm. Keeping her posture straight, she replied politely without backing down. Thank you for the reminder, Director Lana. Since it's my assigned task, I will do my absolute best. With that, she took the folder and walked out. The moment Chloe left, Director Lana rolled her eyes hard, muttering with pure disdain. A community college loser with zero experience. Apex is a Fortune Wubei company. We'll weed out trash like her sooner or later. Right as she finished her sentence, Jared, the vice president, pushed the door open. Lana's face instantly changed into a friendly smile, but Jared didn't hold back, calling her out coldly. Lana, let's not forget, you only secured this director position because the chairman funded your studies abroad for 3 years. Chloe did nothing to you. Why are you talking trash behind her back? Director Lana's face turned sour. She slammed her hands on the desk and stood up. Jared, we've known each other for 10 years. You're lecturing me over a newbie. Apex doesn't keep dead weight. A Lodesand level employee with no backing doesn't deserve to stay here. Jared shook his head with pity, sad to see his old friend become so bitter. He gave her a cryptic warning. Fine, I won't argue with you, but when the CEO comes to talk to you himself, don't regret it. Lana had no idea that the CEO Jared mentioned was Chloe's husband. Meanwhile, inside a luxury executive van, Tristan was resting with his eyes closed. Jared, who was driving, reported with a bit of sympathy. Sir, Director Lana seems to have lost her mind. She dumped the Garrison real estate project on your wife. Everyone knows that client is an absolute nightmare. In the back seat, Tristan slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was deep and freezing. He turned his head slightly, his deep voice carrying a terrifying weight. Notify Garrison Real Estate. All future deals are off. They don't need to come back. As for Director Lana, once this is over, tell her she doesn't need to sit in that director's chair anymore. With one line, he secretly passed a professional death sentence on the executive who bullied his wife. Meanwhile, inside a noisy, dimly lit VIP room at a nightclub, Chloe sat uncomfortably next to Mr. Garrison. Mr. Garrison was acting completely arrogant, surrounded by his rowdy friends. Chloe awkwardly handed over the contract, forcing a professional smile. Mr. Garrison, this is the maximum profit Apex can offer. Let's put past misunderstandings behind us. Could you please look it over? Mr. Garrison lit a cigarette, tossing the folder onto the table with a cold laugh. His eyes scanned Chloe up and down inappropriately. What is the rush? We do business by my rules here. Down these 3 shots of liquor first, then we talk. His crew immediately started shouting, pressuring Chloe to drink. Chloe politely declined, explaining she was allergic to alcohol. She begged him to just look at the paper. Hearing her refusal, Mr. Garrison's face darkened instantly. He threatened her with a vicious tone. Chloe, you're lucky. If this were back in school, I would have slapped you across the room already. Then, he grabbed Chloe's wrist violently, leaning in close with a hideous expression, spitting insults. Stop acting so pure. I heard your ex, Zach, dumped you for my cousin. You supported that guy for years and he screwed you over. I'm telling you, if you had just slept with me back then, you wouldn't be begging for mercy today. Facing his escalating physical harassment and insults, Chloe's eyes flashed with pure determination. She shielded the contract with one hand while reaching into her bag with the other. Just as his dirty hand was about to touch her cheek, Chloe whipped out a canister of pepper spray and blasted it directly into his eyes. Ah, my eyes, mister. Garrison screamed in agony, collapsing onto the couch, twitching in pain. The room turned into pure chaos. Taking advantage of the panic, Chloe grabbed the project folder. In her high heels, she ran out of the room, stumbling down the hallway without looking back. But an enraged Gordon soon pushed the door open with his thugs. He cursed loudly, chasing after Chloe down the hallway like a rabid dog. The corridor was narrow, and Chloe couldn't run fast in heels. As a dirty hand reached out, about to grab her shoulder, Chloe closed her eyes in despair. Right at that exact second, a pair of powerful arms rushed out from the side, pulling the terrified Chloe tightly behind a broad chest. Tristan stood at the front like a guardian angel in a flawless suit. Before Gordon could even realize what was happening, Tristan's iron fist flew out with explosive rage, smashing hard into Gordon's jaw. With a sickening crack, Gordon spun halfway through the air. Before he hit the ground, Tristan stepped in, delivering a brutal knee strike and a textbook shoulder throw. With a heavy thud, Gordon was pinned deep into the corner of a sofa. Tristan's eyes were bloodshot, radiating pure fury. He grabbed the bloody Gordon by his collar, looking down at him. His voice sounded like it came straight from hell. Today, I'm going to beat some respect into you. Let this be a lesson on what you can and cannot do in LA. With that, Tristan threw him aside, roaring like thunder. Get out. Covered in blood with a few broken ribs, Gordon was completely terrified. He and his thugs scrambled away, crawling for their lives. Only then did Tristan drop his killing intent. He turned around, gently holding the trembling Chloe in his arms, whispering sweet comforts to soothe her. After the storm passed inside the bedroom, Chloe lay in bed, wearing comfortable blue silk pajamas. Tristan sat by her side, filled with heartache and guilt. He held her cold hand, apologizing repeatedly. Honey, I'm so sorry. It is my fault. I arrived too late and let you suffer. Though her face was still pale, Chloe pulled his sleeve with worry, whispering softly, Tristan, I'm fine, but you beat up the president of Garrison Real Estate today. Now, all future contracts between Apex and them are probably ruined because of me. Tristan couldn't help but chuckle softly, his eyes full of confidence. He gently touched her forehead, interrupting her with tenderness. Silly girl, it's just a meaningless little contract. Who cares if we lose it? Our family doesn't need that pocket change. The most important thing for you right now is to close your eyes and rest. Leave the rest to your husband. Meanwhile, in the luxury living room of the mansion, Grandma completely lost her temper after learning the truth. She slammed her hand on the mahogany table and stood up, shaking with absolute rage, her eyes burning with fire. That worthless piece of trash from the Garrison family. How dare he lay his filthy hands on my precious Chloe? Grandma turned to Tristan, issuing the ultimate family order. Tristan, you deal with this immediately. Use the harshest methods possible. I want Garrison Real Estate erased from LA entirely. I will not let a single one of them off the hook. Tristan stood tall, his eyes turning deep and icy. He responded in a low voice. Don't worry, Grandma. They touched Chloe. That is a price they cannot afford. I will make sure they pay in blood. So satisfying. The toxic younger brother Harvey, who previously tried to set up his own sister at a hotel, could never have guessed the truth. The poor ordinary guy in a white shirt he looked down on was actually the supreme boss of the Apex group. Tristan. The scene opened in an underground parking garage. The older Mr. Garrison, along with his bandaged, battered son, Gordon, stopped Apex's executive assistant, Jared. In a panic, the older man bowed repeatedly, asking urgently, Jared, what did you mean by that warning? Which powerful figure did our family offend? Jared let out a cold laugh, patting his shoulder blankly. Since you're asking so sincerely, it just so happens our CEO arrived today. Why don't you ask him yourself? The father and son rushed to the side of the car. The door opened, and Tristan stepped out in a blue vest suit, his presence completely dominating the space. His sharp eyes cut through the father and son as he spoke coldly. Weren't you looking for the guy who beat up Gordon? Didn't you say you wanted revenge? Stop looking. I did it. Gordon froze completely, clutching his wounds in shock. Mr. Corporate, for a single woman, is it really worth going this far? Tristan took a violent step forward, his voice carrying immense pressure. A single woman. She is indeed a woman. A kind, hard-working woman. But she is my wife. Hearing the word wife, the older man trembled, his face turning pale. He slapped his son's head instantly, forcing a flattering smile. Mr. Corporate, there must be a misunderstanding here. Tristan didn't want to hear his excuses, throwing down a cold line. I don't have many virtues, except for one, I protect my own. Meanwhile, at the front desk of the Apex Group, clueless female employees were crowding around Chloe, mocking her. Director Lana, who always made her life miserable, crossed her arms. She made a bitter, sarcastic comment. You failed to secure the contract, and you even managed to offend the heir of the Garrison family. You're just a pretty face, a useless decoration. Just as Director Lana was about to to keep bullying Chloe. The older Mr. Garrison and his son rushed in, led by Jared. The moment he saw Chloe, the billionaire businessman bowed a full 90 degrees right in front of the whole staff. His tone was incredibly humble. "Miss Chloe, I am so sorry. My son was foolish and offended you. Please be the bigger person and forgive our ignorance." Under his father's pressure, the arrogant Gordon could only lower his head and apologize sincerely. Then the father respectfully presented a brand new proposal with both hands, stating with a trembling voice that to show sincerity, they would give up an extra 30% of the profits to Apex. The crowd of employees peeked at the contract and gasped. This wasn't just giving up profits, they were making zero money, practically paying Apex out of their own pocket. The arrogant director Lana looked like she had just swallowed a fly, her face turning completely green. Chloe looked at her coldly, while Jared stepped up, putting his arm around Chloe, staring into Lana's eyes. "Director Lana, are you satisfied now? Watch your mouth from now on, and stop causing trouble. Oh, and by the way, Lily is your new boss now." However, right after the office snake was dealt with, the family parasite showed up. The moment Chloe walked out of the building, she ran into her brother Harvey, who had just been released from detention. Harvey showed zero remorse, looking up at the Grand Apex building with a smirk. "Wow, sis, so this is the Apex group. Pretty fancy. I didn't expect you to actually land such a rich guy." Chloe shook with rage, slamming him against the wall. "Shut your mouth. What nonsense are you talking about?" Harvey dropped his smile, turning back into a shameless beggar, demanding $300,000 right away. Chloe held back her disappointment, pointing at his face angrily. "You just got out and you're asking for money again. Did you not learn your lesson inside?" Harvey shouted back righteously. "You're swimming in cash now. What is wrong with giving me some?" Chloe's eyes filled with tears as she yelled back. "Do you have any idea that Mom got sent to the hospital because of you?" But the ungrateful brat just turned his head, blaming his parents for not raising him right. Just as Harvey shamelessly threatened Chloe, saying he would harass her at the office every day if she didn't pay, Tristan walked out of the building in a sharp suit, taking steady steps. Harvey turned at the sound. The moment he saw Tristan's face, he felt like he was struck by lightning. His knees buckled, almost dropping him to the ground. He pointed a shaking finger at Tristan, screaming hysterically, "You, how is this possible? You are the CEO here." A second ago, Harvey looked like a thug, but his face changed faster than a script. He instantly put on a servant smile, limping over like a lapdog. He started slapping his own face, sucking up to Tristan. "Brother Zanins-in-law, brother Zanins-in-law, it was all my fault before. Please be a big man and don't hold it against me." Tristan, out of respect for Chloe, said coldly he'd let it slide today. But the greedy brat immediately pushed his luck, holding out both hands with a greasy smile. "Brother Zanins-in-law, since you're family now, why don't you slip me $1 million to spend?" Hearing this, Chloe completely gave up on her brother. Her bottled Xan-up rage exploded. She rushed forward, using all her strength to slap Harvey across the face, sending him stumbling back. With tears rolling down her cheeks, she declared with absolute finality, "Harvey, listen to me clearly. This is the absolute last time our family gives you money. From now on, don't you dare think about getting a single penny from us." Getting slapped made Harvey drop his act. He burst into tears on the street, crying like a baby. He wailed that he owed hundreds of thousands in gambling debts, and the loan sharks would kill him if he didn't pay. Looking at this hopeless piece of trash, Tristan stepped forward, shielding Chloe behind him. He stared down at Harvey, his eyes sharp as a blade, delivering a cold sentence. "Harvey, I locked you up once and I can lock you up again, and this time you are never getting out." With that, Tristan didn't give him another look, turning to Jared. "Take him to his creditors. You know what to do." Jared walked up with a dark expression, lifting the begging Harvey like a helpless chicken, dragging him away. What awaited him was the iron fist of law and justice. The storm cleared, and the noise died down. Only Chloe and Tristan were left standing there. Chloe turned around slowly, her eyes red, staring deeply at the man who shielded her from every storm, filled with endless gratitude and love. As Tristan met his wife's gaze, all the ice in his eyes melted away instantly, replaced by his usual warm, adoring smile. The undercover billionaire protected his wife with pure power, and the toxic brother finally got his karma. After surviving so many waves, the couple stared into each other's eyes under the sun. Their happy life had just begun. Sean Vance, the newly returned CEO of the tech empire Apex Group, never expected a wild chain of bizarre events the moment he landed back in America. Right now, he was driving his luxury sports car down the highway while taking a frantic call from his grandmother. She was aggressively pushing him to get married, demanding he either meet some girl named Haley or just bring a wife home immediately. But Sean firmly told her over the phone that his heart already belonged to someone else from his past. After hanging up, Sean looked at the faded old photograph in his hand, drifting deep into his memories. 15 years ago, in a park showered with autumn leaves, he had said a heartbreaking goodbye to little Chloe. He promised her back then that he would return for her after studying abroad for 5 years, and they even exchanged origami hearts as a romantic token. But Sean never imagined that a single departure would stretch out into 15 long years. Just as he was staring at the photo and whispering Chloe's name, a terrifying danger sneaked up from behind. A black sedan suddenly accelerated out of nowhere, ramming violently into Sean's sports car. The crash was incredibly brutal, sending Sean's luxury vehicle spinning completely out of control. Seeing their dark plot succeed, the masked attackers immediately sped away from the crime scene. Meanwhile, Chloe was riding her electric scooter nearby and almost ran right into a man stumbling out of the bushes. It was Sean, completely covered in blood, who collapsed right in the middle of the road. Seeing the unconscious man, Chloe was scared completely out of her wits and scrambled to rush him to the hospital. Inside the hospital room, Sean slowly opened his eyes as Chloe anxiously asked how he was feeling. But Sean clutched his head in agonizing pain, screaming in total confusion that he couldn't remember a single thing. The doctor diagnosed him with severe head trauma, confirming he had completely lost his memory. While Sean was hospitalized, dark currents were brewing inside the headquarters of the Apex Group. The third largest shareholder, Thomas Vance, was throwing a massive tantrum in his office, screaming at his assistant for failing the job. He was furious that a carefully planned car crash hadn't successfully ended the CEO's life. Thomas gritted his teeth viciously and delivered a brutal order to find Sean dead or alive back at the hospital. Chloe had absolutely no idea she had just saved a billionaire tech mogul. She was desperately brainstorming with her best friend, Harper, feeling incredibly guilty about the whole situation. Chloe genuinely believed that her scooter had caused the accident and given the poor man amnesia. Lying on the hospital bed, Sean caught their conversation, a sharp gleam flashing through his eyes. He smoothly decided to play along, weakly grabbing Chloe's hand and whining that she had to take full responsibility for him now. Though Chloe felt completely helpless, she had a massive, life-changing event to handle that very day. She gently calmed Sean down and told him to wait patiently for her in the room. Then, she pulled out a precious blue velvet ring box. She felt her long-term boyfriend, Ethan, finally had a stable career, so she decided to take the initiative and propose to him today. Hearing this, Harper found it totally wild, commenting that Ethan must have hit the jackpot to marry someone as amazing as Chloe. Lying in bed, Sean's expression turned completely dark the moment he heard Chloe was going to propose to another man. His eyes filled with an incredibly complex mix of emotions as he took a deep breath and insisted on going with her. The scene shifts to the first anniversary gala of Ethan's startup company. Ethan was standing proudly on stage, loudly announcing to his employees that they had secured a $10 million investment from the Miller Group. Right after, he pulled the heavily made-up heiress, Victoria Miller, to his side and proudly announced their sudden engagement. Chloe arrived holding the proposal ring, standing right outside the double doors and hearing every single word clearly. She could not believe that she had poured her mother's life-saving medical fund into his business when Ethan was starting out. Back then, the man had solemnly sworn he would give her a dream wedding the moment his company stabilized. But now, he was using Chloe's hard-earned money to marry a wealthy heiress. Fueled by absolute rage and heartbreak, Chloe pushed the doors open to confront them face to face. Faced with Chloe's furious demands, the homewrecker Victoria showed zero shame or remorse. Instead, she arrogantly threw a thick stack of cash worth $300,000 right onto the floor and stomped on it. She mocked Chloe as a low-class peasant, bragging that she would throw in another 50 grand if Chloe got on her knees to pick it up. Looking at the disgusting couple, Chloe's eyes turned stone cold and she stepped forward, landing a sharp, echoing slap right across Victoria's face. Seeing his new wealthy fiancé get hit, Ethan instantly flew into a violent rage. He held Victoria protectively with one arm while raising his other hand to strike Chloe viciously. At that exact split second, a powerful hand clamped down on Ethan's wrist mid-air like an iron vise. Sean, who had been watching from the shadows, made a dominant entrance, coldly flinging the toxic ex away. Before the stunned crowd, he wrapped his arm firmly around Chloe's shoulder and announced every single word clearly. "I will marry her." After the dramatic chaos ended, Harper found out about the ex-boyfriend's disgusting betrayal and was fuming in the hallway. She was pacing frantically, looking for a weapon and swearing to tear Ethan into absolute pieces. Surprisingly, Chloe remained completely calm, pulling her furious friend back with a gentle smile. She comforted Harper, saying this was actually a blessing in disguise and she should celebrate dodging a bullet. The three of them returned to Chloe's modest rental apartment. Harper was still incredibly angry, immediately ordering Sean around to fetch some water the moment they walked in. She leaned into Chloe, whispering if she really intended to house this random, mysterious guy. Chloe sighed, explaining that he had amnesia and got hurt partly because of her, so she couldn't just throw him onto the streets. Looking at Sean's handsome face, Harper joked about letting him crash at her place instead. Chloe instantly poked Harper's forehead, lecturing her about the danger since they didn't even know if the man was already married. Finally, Chloe practically dragged Harper out of the apartment since she had to work overtime anyway. After Harper left, Sean was looking around for some spare clothes to wear. He unexpectedly found a faded childhood photograph hidden deep inside a drawer. The moment Chloe saw it, her eyes dimmed with deep sorrow and she snatched the photo away. She bitterly complained that the little boy in the picture was a total jerk who broke her heart. Sean froze, cautiously asking what exactly the boy had done to hurt her. Chloe vented all her resentment, saying he promised to return in 5 years but made her wait 15 years without showing his face once. While complaining, Chloe stared closely at the old photo, suddenly turning her head toward Sean. "You know, you actually look a bit like this jerk," she muttered, "but you are way hotter than him." Then she gritted her teeth and made a fierce threat that she would skin him alive if that liar ever dared to show up again. Hearing his childhood sweetheart's intense complaints, Sean's heart raced with a mix of deep guilt and pure joy. He silently lowered his head, completely terrified to admit that he was actually that exact jerk. The next morning, Chloe took Sean to a jewelry store to return the blue velvet ring box. She was totally determined to cut ties with her ridiculous past once and for all. After returning the ring, Sean made an excuse to use the restroom. Chloe rolled her eyes at his rushed departure, complaining that a grown man shouldn't have such a weak bladder. However, the moment Sean stepped into the restroom, his innocent and gentle act vanished completely. Another core executive of the Apex group, Justin, silently appeared right behind him. He bowed respectfully, addressing him formally as President Vance. Justin reported with a heavy expression that because Sean had been missing for days, rogue board members were moving to replace him. Sean slowly washed his hands in front of the mirror, letting out a dark, mocking laugh. He stated calmly that everything was playing out exactly as he had anticipated. Justin asked with deep concern if it was truly safe to hide his identity and put Chloe in charge as the acting CEO. Sean's eyes turned deep and calculated as he explained that pushing Chloe into the spotlight was the only way to flush out the traitor. He sternly ordered Justin to arrange the absolute highest level of security to protect Chloe at all costs. Justin smiled knowingly, teasing before leaving that he would make sure the First Lady stayed completely safe. Hearing that title, the serious look on Sean's face crumbled as a massive grin broke across his face. Completely clueless about the plan, Chloe arrived at the Apex Group headquarters for her job interview. interview. Justin personally received her in the executive office, formally announcing that she was hired as the executive assistant. But before Chloe could even celebrate, Justin put on a worried face. He claimed that the real billionaire CEO had suffered a horrific car crash and was currently missing. Chloe was about to offer her condolences when Justin's next words completely blew her mind. He formally announced that according to corporate bylaws, the assistant assumes absolute power if the CEO goes missing. In other words, from that exact second, the clueless Chloe had just transformed into the acting CEO of the entire tech giant. Sitting in the luxurious, oversized executive chair, Chloe was in absolute shock. She felt like her entire life had just turned into a wild roller coaster ride. Just then, the branch manager, Brian, pushed the door open to bring in some coffee. Justin solemnly introduced Chloe's new identity right in front of him. The strict manager, Brian, instantly changed his expression the moment he heard the words acting CEO. His face lit up like a blooming flower as he bowed repeatedly, flattering Chloe with total subservience. But the moment Justin stepped out of the executive office, Brian's smile dropped instantly. He shamelessly sat right across from Chloe, mocking her with a condescending sneer. He insulted her, saying she was just using her looks to climb the corporate ladder and marry into wealth. Chloe frowned deeply, demanding to know what he actually wanted. Brian slammed a massive contract onto the desk, ordering her to sign it immediately. Chloe skimmed through the pages and noticed the contract was full of dangerous loopholes that would totally ruin the company. She firmly refused to sign the paperwork. Brian threatened her viciously, warning her not to learn things the hard way on her very first day of work. But Chloe's pride kicked in and she stared right back at him without a single hint of fear. "Take your garbage contract and get the hell out of my office right now," she ordered, every single word clearly. After Brian left, Justin walked out of the back room, giving Chloe a massive thumbs up for her bravery. But Chloe was already backing down, terrified that the acting CEO position was way too dangerous for her. With a miserable face, she told Justin that she wanted to resign immediately. Meanwhile, a frustrated Brian took the unsigned contract back to his office, only to face a brutal screaming match from Thomas. Brian clutched his swollen face, whining that the new acting CEO was incredibly arrogant and impossible to deal with. Thomas slammed his hand onto the desk, spitting out a curse in sheer hatred. He couldn't understand how a nobody girl dared to act so high and mighty inside the Apex group. He asked Brian if there was any sign of Sean Vance yet. Learning that Sean was still completely missing, Thomas let out a malicious laugh, saying it was better if he died out there. He ordered Brian to hire more hitmen to hunt him down, making sure Sean never made it back alive. As for the contract, Thomas decided to personally handle the arrogant girl himself. When the workday ended, Chloe grabbed her bag to head home, but Brian and several black-suited guards blocked her path. Right after, the ultimate mastermind Thomas walked into the executive suite with an incredibly arrogant stride. He slammed the Miami Resort Development Project contract right in front of Chloe. With a fake smile, he threatened her to sign the papers immediately. Chloe recognized the corrupt contract and tried to dodge it, saying her shift was over and she would review it tomorrow. But Thomas snapped violently, slamming his palm onto the desk so hard that the coffee cups rattled. He threatened her viciously, roaring that she wouldn't walk out of the office alive if she didn't sign today. Faced with Thomas's direct threat to her life, all of Chloe's suppressed frustration exploded. She stood up abruptly, screaming right back at him without backing down an inch. She reminded him that she was the acting CEO and a third largest shareholder had zero right to order her around. Seeing that brute force wouldn't make Chloe surrender, Thomas let out a cold sneer and pulled out his phone. He mocked her for being completely clueless about the real corporate danger. Right in front of her, he dialed a hidden number, bragging that he was calling the missing real CEO to let her hear his direct order. The call connected quickly, but Thomas never expected that the voice on the other end belonged to Sean. Sean was was using a special voice modulator right from Chloe's apartment. He intentionally played along with Thomas's little game over the phone. He told Chloe in a heavy tone that people were plotting against him, so he had to stay hidden in the shadows for now. He ordered Chloe to sign Director Vance's contract immediately for the sake of the company's bigger picture. Hearing the direct order from the real CEO, Chloe's mind was flooded with confusion and doubt. But with Thomas's smug face and the guards closing in, she gritted her teeth and gave in. Just as she picked up the pen to sign, Justin pushed the office doors open. He walked in with a stern face, loudly asking Thomas why he was surrounding the acting CEO with thugs after hours. Justin walked over to Chloe, hinting deeply that she shouldn't sign any suspicious contracts before the real CEO returned. However, Chloe could only offer a bitter smile, leaning in to whisper to Justin in a tiny voice. "But Justin, I already signed it," she confessed. Seeing the contract secured, Thomas burst into a loud, arrogant laugh. When Justin asked to review the document, Thomas quickly snatched it away, mocking Justin for having zero authority. He sneered that since the acting CEO had signed, he would take his leave now. Chloe let out a long sigh, her tense body relaxing as she asked Justin if she could finally go home. Receiving his permission, she didn't want to stay a single second longer, grabbing her bag and rushing out. But the moment Chloe reached the exit, she stopped dead in her tracks. She held onto the door frame, turning her head back toward Thomas, who was about to leave triumphantly. She flashed an incredibly mocking, brilliant smile and called out cheerfully, "Oh, by the way, Director Vance, shouldn't you double-check your precious contract before you leave?" Thomas found her comment completely bizarre, a sudden wave of anxiety washing over him. He confusedly flipped open the contract, scrolling all the way to the final signature block. The moment his eyes hit the signature line, he felt like he had been struck by lightning. There, written in bold, messy letters, was the name Sailor Moon. Chloe had even intentionally misspelled two of the words just to mess with him. Thomas instantly realized he had been completely played by a seemingly innocent girl. His long-planned conspiracy had turned into an absolute joke. He shook violently with rage, his face turning from pale to purple. Unable to take it anymore, he let out a hysterical, furious roar toward the empty hallway. "Chloe Lamb, I am going to absolutely destroy you." After surviving the corporate drama, Chloe dragged her exhausted body back home late that night. She collapsed completely onto the sofa without any elegance, crying out for help. Sean, dressed in casual home clothes, walked over gently with a glass of hot juice. He smiled softly, asking her if she had a brutal day at work. Chloe took a sip of the juice, instantly launching into a wild recap of her insane day with Sean and Harper. She gestured wildly, explaining how she got hired as an assistant, but became the acting CEO the next second. What made her proudest was how she beat Thomas under extreme pressure. She explained how she signed Sailor Moon with typos on the Miami contract, driving the old fox completely insane. At the dinner table, Chloe shoved food into her mouth while aggressively talking the Apex group. She stated bluntly that the entire corporate headquarters was nothing but a toxic den of thieves. Then, she shifted her target directly to the missing mysterious CEO. She gritted her teeth, claiming that any boss who managed such a broken company must be a total piece of garbage himself. John, who was quietly eating beside her, felt a cold sweat break out, almost choking on his rice. He tried to defend himself in a small voice, mentioning he heard the CEO was actually a decent, righteous guy. Hearing this, Chloe and Harper slammed their forks down simultaneously. They stared at him with expressions of absolute disgust and judgment. Harper immediately switched into gossip mode, mysteriously sharing some top-secret rumors she heard from inside the company. She slammed the table, stating the CEO was 30 years old and had never even been in a relationship. She claimed a gorgeous model tried to seduce him when he landed, but the brutal CEO threw her right out the front door. At this point, Harper and Chloe leaned in together, whispering their ultimate conclusion. "Everyone says the CEO doesn't even like women. He totally likes guys," they claimed. Sean almost spat his food across the table, his face flushing red and white in sheer panic. He scrambled to clear his name, raising his voice defensively. "Don't talk nonsense. My friend told me he totally likes women, and he already has someone special in his heart," he yelled. But Chloe and Harper completely ignored his powerless frustration. Harper got even more excited, lowering her voice to drop a massive bombshell. Please, what do you know? I heard he stayed abroad so long that his lifestyle is incredibly wild. He literally keeps dozens of hot male models in his mansion, partying in different ways every single day, she whispered. Dozens of male models partying every single day. Hearing his best friend spread such wild lies about his private life right to his face, Sean was completely numb. He was furious, his chest heaving as he watched Chloe nod along like she was listening to a masterpiece. Sean broke down completely, standing up in absolute embarrassment to cut the women off. He frantically grabbed the dishes, yelling defensively to end the conversation. Y'all right, that's enough. This is getting completely ridiculous. Finish eating and get out, let's go, he shouted. Watching the usually gentle man suddenly throw a tantrum, Chloe and Harper shared a look, secretly laughing that his brain was truly broken from the crash. However, the corporate storm was far from over. The next day, Chloe arrived at the Apex Group executive suite as usual to handle business. But when she pushed the heavy doors open, she noticed the executive chair was turned completely away from her. As the chair slowly spun around, a powerful ice-cold woman appeared in Chloe's view. She wore a luxury lace blouse with a black skirt, sitting with her legs elegantly crossed, radiating pure wealth and arrogance. Chloe instantly turned alert, clutching her bag and demanding to know who she was and why she was in the CEO's chair. The woman judged Chloe coldly, her lips curling into a smug smile. She stood up elegantly, closing the distance and introducing herself in a freezing, arrogant tone. Haley Ashley, heiress of the Ashley Corporation, she said, every single word clearly. And the future Mrs. Sean Vance. Staring at the woman who claimed to be Sean's fiancée, Chloe felt like she had been hit by a truck, freezing right on the spot. The ultimate storm of her career and her love life had officially begun. An executive assistant turned acting CEO was getting publicly humiliated by a vicious billionaire heiress. Haley strutted forward in her designer heels, mocking Chloe with heavy sarcasm. You do have a pretty face, she sneered. No wonder you thought you could climb the social ladder and become a princess. Chloe wasn't about to take her crap, her eyes turning sharp as she fired right back. Miss Ashley, if you don't know how to speak respectfully, you can shut your mouth, Chloe snapped. Haley lost her temper, crossing her arms and using her status to threaten her. You better watch your step if you want to keep your job at the Apex Group, she barked. Chloe let out a cold laugh, telling her straight up that she was the one calling the shots around here now. As they were fighting, Sean's mother, Mrs. Vance, walked in arm with the matriarch of the family. Sean's grandmother, Haley, instantly flipped her act, grabbing the grandmother's arm to whine and play the victim. Mrs. Vance joined in to fuel the fire, claiming a low-class girl like Chloe had absolutely no place in their company. The grandmother walked up to Chloe with a stern face, ready to pressure her into resigning. At that exact critical moment, Justin sprinted into the office completely out of breath. He completely ignored everyone else, grabbing the grandmother and pulling her out, saying there was a massive emergency. The grandmother was annoyed, but when Justin held his phone to her ear, Sean's familiar voice came through the line. The grandmother froze in absolute shock, crying out his name in disbelief. Sean verified he was safe and sound, even sharing a massive secret with a chuckle. Don't worry, Grandma, I'll be back soon, he said. I am actually staying with your future granddaughter-in-law, and she is taking amazing care of me. Justin quickly whispered right into the grandmother's ear to deliver the final blow. Grandma, the girl Sean is talking about is Chloe, the acting CEO you are about to fire inside, he muttered. The grandmother's face changed instantly. Sean reminded her over the phone that he had critical business to settle and needed her to keep his secret for now. Back inside, Mrs. Vance and Haley were smugly waiting for Chloe to get thrown out onto the streets. Chloe took a deep breath, taking the initiative to speak up. Madam, if you want me to resign, I will pack my bags and leave right now, she said. Mrs. Vance mocked her from the side, telling her to hurry up before her son returned to clean up her mess. Shut up, the grandmother suddenly roared, making Mrs. Vance and Haley flinch in fear. The next second, the grandmother's face lit up with a warm, loving smile as she grabbed Chloe's hands. She showered her with affection, asking about her family and telling her how hard she must have worked managing the firm. Come home with me, sweetie. Grandma will cook a wonderful dinner to spoil you," she pampered. Chloe was completely bewildered, responding with deep hesitation. "Madam, you are being far too kind," she stammered. The grandmother feigned anger, patting her hand lovingly. "Don't call me madam, call me grandma." Right then, Justin walked in perfectly on cue, reminding the acting CEO that it was time for her meeting. After Chloe left, Mrs. Vance and Haley demanded to know why the grandmother had a sudden change of heart. The grandmother shut them down coldly, stating the matter was finished and warning Haley that the marriage depended entirely on Sean's choice. But the toxic duo wasn't ready to give up yet. Mrs. Vance pulled Haley aside in private, promising her that the family was counting on her to give them a grandson. Haley giggled happily, promising she would handle Sean. While the billionaire family drama was brewing, a toxic ghost from the past showed up at Chloe's modest apartment. The malicious Victoria Miller arrived at her doorstep, proudly flaunting a bright red wedding invitation. "Ethan and I are getting married," she bragged with a nasty grin. "I personally brought you our engagement gala invitation." Chloe was holding a bag of snacks, not even bothering to look up at her. "What does your engagement have to do with me?" she muttered. Victoria crossed her arms, laughing viciously. "It has everything to do with you. You trained my man for years, so my entire family owes you a thank you." She even threw in some nasty insults, calling Chloe a broke, low-class peasant. Chloe's face fell, and she slammed the invitation right back into Victoria's chest. "I have zero interest in a wedding for 2 dogs, so roll your way out of here," she snapped. Just as Victoria was about to blow up, a powerful arm in a crisp white shirt reached from behind, catching the invitation smoothly. Sean appeared behind Chloe with an absolute ice-cold expression, staring Victoria down. "An engagement party, huh?" he said, freezing yard. "Chloe and I will be there right on time. Now, get the hell out." Victoria judged Sean up and down, rolling her eyes with heavy sarcasm. "Wow, Chloe, you really settled for this random thug?" she mocked. "You look familiar. Did I see you working construction on one of my family's sites?" Sean didn't flinch at all, firing back with a lethal counterattack. "I'd rather work with my own hands than betray a good woman just to chase a cheap fortune," he spat. Chloe joined in, calling Ethan a gold-digging traitor, leaving Victoria to stomp off in absolute fury. On the day of the engagement gala, Chloe arrived at the luxury hotel ballroom with Sean. Looking at Sean's obviously oversized rented suit, he asked awkwardly if the fit looked terrible. Chloe leaned in, whispering softly into his ear, "My budget could only afford a cheap rental. Just deal with it for today." Right then, Chloe's best friend Harper walked over, checking Sean out. Sean twisted around awkwardly to show off the look. Harper's eyes lit up, joking that he actually looked exactly like a billionaire mogul. She patted his shoulder, warning him to bring his A-game today to get revenge on the toxic ex without blowing his cover. Sean smiled confidently. "Don't worry, I won't blow it. You guys go ahead. I am heading to the restroom." Chloe and Harper walked into the main hall, running face first into Victoria and Ethan, who were flaunting their wealth. The moment Victoria saw Chloe, she launched into bully mode to brag about stealing her man. She raised her champagne glass, loudly showing off a massive diamond ring to the crowd. "Look at this," she bragged. "Ethan bought me this rare designer ring from an overseas auction. There are only 3 of these in the entire world." While Victoria was drowning in her own arrogance, Sean stepped into the ballroom. He had changed into a flawlessly tailored, ultra-luxury black designer suit, radiating dominant authority. He walked straight to Chloe's side, wrapping his arm gently around her waist. "Sorry I am late, honey," he murmured. Chloe was completely stunned, whispering in total shock, "Where on earth did you get those clothes?" Sean winked playfully, whispering back, "Borrowed them." Staring at the aristocratic man beside Chloe, Victoria felt a sudden wave of jealousy but tried to keep her smug act up. Sean let out a cold laugh, launching into an absolute masterclass of fact-checking. "The ring you are talking about is called Dream Wedding, designed exclusively by Wells with a hidden signature worth millions," he stated calmly. "Are you absolutely certain your cheap rock has that signature?" Harper was lightning fast, grabbing Victoria's hand to inspect the ring closely. Victoria tried to pull away in pure panic, but Harper shouted the truth to the entire room. "There is no signature at all. This ring is a total fake." Ethan's face turned completely pale, unable to utter a single word. His younger brother jumped in defensively, screaming at Sean in a violent rage. "Stop lying through your teeth. My brother just locked down a $50 million deal with the Apex Group. A successful man like him deserves a wealthy heiress, while a peasant like Chloe only deserves a homeless thug like you." Hearing the name of his own company, Sean's gaze turned lethally cold. He stared straight into Ethan's eyes, delivering a brutal declaration, every single word clearly. "Then let me tell you right now, your partnership with the Apex Group is officially canceled." Ethan burst into a loud laugh like he just heard the funniest joke in the world. "Canceled?" he mocked. "Who the hell do you think you are to cancel our deal?" Victoria chimed in arrogantly. "Director Thomas Vance from the Apex Group is arriving personally today. Ask him yourself if you have the guts." Sean's face showed zero emotion. The scene briefly shifts to an ultimate twist where the director Thomas they were relying on was currently tied up in a dark basement. He was gagged with cotton, sobbing hysterically with tears streaming down his face. Right then, a loud announcement echoed through the ballroom entrance, announcing the VIP guests from the Apex Group. Justin stepped into the hall with a freezing expression. Victoria ran up to him like she saved her life, dragging Ethan, along with a fake smile. "Manager Justin, thank goodness you are here," she flattered. Justin scanned the crowd, stating coldly, "Director Thomas had an emergency and won't be attending today." Victoria immediately pointed at Sean, whining to Justin to punish him. "That absolute loser just claimed he canceled our $50 million project with your company," she screamed. Justin looked over, his face twitching slightly when he saw Sean's amused expression. His eyes practically screamed, "Boss, you are playing a dangerous game today." Justin cleared his throat, turning back to Ethan and Victoria to drop a massive bombshell. "Regarding your contract with the Apex Group, it is officially terminated immediately." The entire family went completely numb, seeing their massive project vanish into thin air. Sean let out a mocking laugh, turning Chloe around to make a perfect exit. "I thought this party would be fun, but it is just filled with trash. Let's get out of here," he said, just as they were about to leave triumphantly. A middle-aged chauffeur in a green shirt sprinted into the ballroom. He screamed at the top of his lungs towards Sean and Chloe's backs. "Hey, are you guys keeping the luxury car or what? If not, I am driving it back. It costs $500 an hour." The desperate Victoria caught this lifeline, bursting into hysterical laughter and screams of pure joy. She pointed at Chloe, humiliating her before the entire crowd. "I knew it. Your entire life is just a cheap rental. You two nobodies really tried to act rich." Faced with the sudden embarrassment, Chloe lowered her head awkwardly, but Sean remained completely unfazed, staring at the manic Victoria with total calm. Victoria curled her lip, sneering maliciously. "You claimed you only ride in luxury cars. Do you actually just walk everywhere on your own 2 feet?" Sean's lips curled into a mysterious, confident smile. Instead of arguing, he calmly adjusted his designer suit jacket, offering a polite invitation to the toxic couple. "Why don't we step outside together and find out?" The drama at the office had actually been brewing long before this chaotic engagement gala. A few days prior in the corporate stairwell, Chloe had run into a stressed Harper carrying a massive stack of files. Harper was on the verge of tears, venting all her exhaustion to Chloe. "I stayed up all night working on this pitch, but the managers are just stealing my credit. I am literally going to die from overwork," she sobbed. Chloe felt incredibly bad for her friend, patting her head and promising she would hunt down the corrupt manager. The scene flashes back to the corrupt manager, sitting arrogantly at her executive desk. She skimmed through Harper's brilliant proposal, mocking her with a nasty sneer. "Poor people just need to work harder," she scoffed. "This pitch is amazing, so it belongs to me now." Harper asked with red eyes how that was possibly fair. The manager slammed the files down, poking Harper's shoulder arrogantly. "It is fair because you are just a low-level grunt who doesn't matter," she barked. The scene shifts back to the high-level boardroom of the Apex Group. The corrupt manager was smiling fake sweetly, handing the stolen pitch to Chloe, who sat at the head of the table. "Acting CEO, here is the critical data proposal for today's meeting," she flattered. Chloe took the files with a deadpan expression, flipping through a few pages before staring her down with sharp eyes. "Did you write this proposal entirely by yourself?" Chloe questioned. The manager held her head high, lying without blinking. "Of course, unless you think someone else wrote it for me." Chloe let out a cold laugh half pointing at a specific page to spring her trap. Then explain to me exactly what this second data section means, she demanded. The manager froze completely, having never actually read the contents of the stolen file. She rubbed her hands nervously, trying to dodge the question with a fake excuse. Well, I wrote it so fast that the exact details are slipping my mind right now, she stammered. Chloe saw right through her lies, calling out toward the doorway. Harper, step inside and explain it, she ordered. Harper pushed the door open instantly, delivering a flawless, articulate breakdown right in front of the manager. Ma'am, that data represents the core financial metrics for the second quarter, pulled directly from last week's real estate report, Harper stated confidently. The manager's face turned pale as her lies were exposed before the entire board. Chloe leaned back in her executive chair, smiling mockingly. So you didn't write a single word of this. Did you pay someone, or did you just rob your own employee? Even caught red-handed, the shameless manager slammed her hand on the table to defend herself. I gave her a valuable career opportunity by letting her work under my name. She should be thanking me, she argued wildly. Chloe lost all patience, her face turning completely ice cold as she typed up a termination notice on her laptop. Pack your bags and get out of my building immediately, she ordered without looking up. Realizing she was getting fired, the manager dropped her act entirely, screaming hysterically right at Chloe's face. Who the hell do you think you are, Chloe Lamb? You are just a temporary acting CEO. Do you have any idea who my uncle is, Thomas Vance? The third largest shareholder of this entire company. You have zero authority to fire me, she shrieked, thinking her massive connection would save her. Just as she thought she won the fight, the boardroom door swung open, and Sean's executive secretary walked in with a bizarre look on his face. Chloe never expected that the missing billionaire CEO she always criticized at home was actually the gentle man who massaged her feet in her living room. The story goes back to a high-profile boardroom meeting at the Apex Group. The arrogant Thomas Vance had loudly announced the cancellation of their deal with Ethan's company. Acting CEO Chloe fought back instantly, stating Ethan was an untrustworthy snake who would ruin the firm. But Thomas refused to listen, shoving a contract forward and demanding her signature for the Miami development project. Sensing a massive corporate fraud, Chloe firmly refused to sign without the real CEO's approval. Thomas flew into a violent rage, threatening her life right on the spot. At that exact critical second, the grandmother matriarch pushed the door open. Radiating immense power, she landed a brutal slap right across Thomas's face, firing him in front of the entire board. She held Chloe's hand gently, telling her to take the rest of the day off and go home. An exhausted Chloe returned to her apartment, collapsing onto the couch. Sean immediately rushed over in his white shirt, bringing her a glass of water and gently rubbing her feet. Chloe enjoyed the pampering while launching into a furious rant about the corrupt Apex Group. She claimed the hidden CEO must be a total piece of garbage, even joking that he probably just wanted to hit on her. Sean just smiled warmly, keeping his massive secret to himself. As he went to cut some fruit, Chloe's phone rang. It was her father calling from their rural hometown. He asked about her wedding with Ethan, and Chloe confessed they broke up, making her father curse the toxic ex over the phone. But before they could finish talking, loud crashing noises and screaming echoed through the line. Thugs were violently threatening her father to sign a contract, shouting that he was the last holdout in the village. Chloe panicked, hanging up to rush back to her hometown, and Sean insisted on protecting her. When they arrived at the family property, her father was already beaten down on the ground, surrounded by masked men with bats. The leader in a black tank top bragged that the Apex Group bought the land for a luxury resort and was executing a forced demolition today. Chloe was furious, declaring her status as the acting CEO of Apex and demanding to know why she never authorized this. But the thugs laughed it off, assuming she was a lunatic, and raised their weapons to strike. In that dangerous split second, Sean's eyes turned lethal as he unleashed incredible combat skills. He single-handedly took down the entire gang, forcing them to run away while shielding Chloe and her father. Inside the house, Chloe gently tended to Sean's minor cuts. Her father let out a long sigh, explaining that Apex had offered a measly $200,000 in compensation. He refused to sign such a scam contract, which led to the brutal beating. Hearing the small amount, Sean's brows furrowed as a wave of fury washed over him. He had personally set the relocation compensation to be much higher. Clearly, someone inside his company was stealing millions. Her father assumed this powerful man was Chloe's new boyfriend and praised him endlessly. Chloe blushed and denied it, but Sean smoothly accepted the title, staring at her with pure affection. But a more disgusting betrayal was waiting just around the corner. The corrupt village chief's son, dressed in a flashy shirt, had partnered with Chloe's own brother Austin. They entered the house with a fresh contract to force the father to sign. After getting physically schooled by Sean out in the yard, the flashy shirt thug called in a massive crowd to surround the house. He mocked Chloe, accidentally blabbing a massive secret that the real compensation was $400,000, and his family stole half. Looking at the corrupt gang, Sean dropped his gentle act entirely. He stepped forward with terrifying speed, cleanly breaking the thug's arm with his bare hands. Screaming in agonizing pain, the thug tried to save his own life by blaming the Apex CEO, yelling that Sean Vance ordered the hit. Hearing someone use his own name to commit crimes, the real Sean Vance kicked him across the yard with total disgust. But her degenerate brother Austin was desperate to clear his gambling debts with the promised cash. He made a horrific deal with the thugs on the steps to lure his own sister out. Late that night, Chloe received a crying call from Austin, claiming he was too terrified to come home. Kind-hearted Chloe ignored Sean's warnings and rushed to a local hotel room to rescue her brother. Austin put on a fake act of submission, serving her a glass of water. Chloe drank it without a second thought, lecturing him about his gambling habits. But as she stood up to leave, the heavy sedative kicked in, and she collapsed helplessly into the corner. Staring at his terrified sister, Austin showed his true monstrous colors. "Dear sister, just sleep with the boss for one night so I can clear my gambling debts. It's your duty," he yelled shamelessly. The flashy shirt thug walked in laughing, lifting the helpless Chloe onto the bed. Just as the man took off his jacket to assault her, the hotel door was blown completely off its hinges with a violent crash. Sean stormed in like an absolute god of wrath, his fists flying in pure rage. He pinned the thug to the floor, beating him into a bloody mess until he begged for mercy. His security team dragged the sobbing Austin into the room, who fell to his knees, slapping his own face in terror. Sean grabbed the toxic brother, his eyes bloodshot with pure anger. "Your sister is the sweetest woman alive. I despise anyone who hurts her, let alone her own blood," he roared. With a brutal kick, he permanently crippled the degenerate brother. Sean walked over to the bed, gently waking Chloe up. Drugged and confused, Chloe saw his face and murmured, "Sir," before passing out safely in his embrace. Ultimately, Chloe woke up safely in a hospital bed. Sean sat by her side, gently letting her know that the thugs and her brother were locked away in jail. Though heartbroken, Chloe begged him not to tell her father the truth about Austin's betrayal to protect the old man's health. After surviving the life-or-death crisis, their love blossomed, and they shared a deep emotional hug. Her father peeked in, smiling happily before quietly leaving them alone. Chloe sighed, mentioning she had to rush back to New York for work, heavily criticizing the company again. "The Apex group is just a toxic dump full of snakes," she complained. Watching her leave, Sean slowly stood straight, his gentle gaze turning incredibly sharp and authoritative. He adjusted his suit jacket, whispering coldly to himself, "The Apex group, it's time for a complete purge." The real billionaire CEO was making his dominant return, and a massive corporate reckoning was about to begin. The corrupt insider director Thomas never expected that the ordinary man in a white shirt had already exposed his multi-million-dollar fraud scheme completely. The story picks up late at night. Sean was sitting on the couch, typing furiously on his laptop before shutting it with a satisfying click. Looking at the soundly sleeping Chloe, his eyes filled with pure affection as he gently covered her with a blanket. He stepped into the hallway, calling Justin with an absolute ice-cold tone. "Pick me up tomorrow morning. Let's see what fools show up at the board meeting," he ordered. The next morning, Chloe woke up in a panic, grabbing her bag and rushing toward the door, screaming that she overslept. But Sean calmly walked over with fresh sandwiches and coffee, telling her to eat before running out. Chloe Chloe was in such a rush that she took a massive bite right from his hand, praising his cooking before storming out like a whirlwind. Outside the Apex corporate tower, Justin was about to get into his car when Ethan's new fiancée Haley, Ashley, blocked his path. Haley was screaming like a lunatic, demanding to know why Chloe hadn't been fired yet. Justin brushed her off coldly, stating he had critical business and firing an acting CEO violated corporate bylaws. Haley screamed in pure jealousy, claiming she was a million times better than Chloe and deserved the executive seat. Right then, Justin's phone rang. It was Sean calling, hearing Haley's annoying voice through the line. Sean's voice sounded like pure ice. "Put her on the phone," he ordered Justin. The moment Haley took the phone, Sean delivered a brutal ultimatum. "Let me tell you something, Haley Ashley. You don't compare to Chloe in any way. Stop harassing my assistant," he snapped. The verbal takedown left Haley completely speechless, allowing Justin to grab his phone and speed away. Meanwhile, Chloe walked straight into a trap set by Thomas the moment she entered her office. Thomas dumped a mountain of complex financial reports onto her desk, demanding they be ready for tomorrow's meeting. Chloe stared at the impossible stack, gritting her teeth and promising to finish them tonight. That night, Chloe brought the files home to pull an all-nighter. Seeing her drowning in stress, Sean jumped in to help her organize the data with absolute corporate precision. Chloe joked if a regular guy like him actually knew how to read financial reports, but Sean just smiled gently, staying up to guide her through the night. However, at the board meeting the next morning, Thomas launched a vicious surprise attack. He slammed his hand on the table, falsely accusing Chloe of forging the company's financial results. Faced with the frame-up, Chloe stood up instantly, tearing his fake act apart in front of everyone. She exposed that the files were backlogged documents Thomas personally handed her, meaning the core data was already corrupted by him. Thomas lost face, ordering the bought-off board members to pressure her into either resigning or getting fired. Just as Thomas thought he won the ultimate battle, the boardroom doors flew open. The grandmother matriarch walked in with an absolute furious expression, instantly silencing the room to back Chloe up. But the corrupt Thomas had already secured the majority vote, forcing a headcount to trap Chloe in a corner. Looking at the corporate greed, Chloe completely let go of the stress. She held the grandmother's hand, proudly declaring she didn't care about this garbage job anyway. The real parasites of the Apex group are the people sitting at this table, she mocked before walking out gracefully. The moment she exited the building, a luxury fleet pulled up and Sean Vance stepped out in a flawless designer suit, radiating absolute power. After resigning, a miserable Chloe went to a local bar with Harper to drown her sorrows. She kept complaining about her mysterious roommate who vanished without saying goodbye the moment he got his memory back. As fate would have it, Victoria Miller showed up to bully her, mocking her for getting thrown out of the company. All of Chloe's suppressed rage exploded instantly. She smashed a liquor bottle on the bar, pointing the broken glass straight at Victoria's face. "Test me right now if you want to find out what happens," she roared. The sheer dominant energy scared Victoria completely pale. Victoria could only leave a weak threat, telling Chloe to bring her broke boyfriend to their upcoming high school reunion party so she could humiliate her there. Chloe let out a cold laugh, accepting the challenge without a second thought. Meanwhile, the ultimate twist was unfolding inside the Apex boardroom. Sean sat at the head of the table, transforming from a gentle roommate into the absolute lord of the empire. Thomas turned completely to stone, trying to use corporate profits to force Sean into signing the resort project. Sean let out a dark laugh, and Justin slammed a massive file right into Thomas's face. The documents contained ironclad evidence of Thomas embezzling corporate funds and running a corruption ring with the village chief. Thomas collapsed into his chair, getting dragged out by security like a dead dog to face justice. After purging the traitors, Sean dropped his cold act, hugging his grandmother like a loving grandson. He happily shared his plan to propose to Chloe. Looking at his grandmother's confused face, Sean finally revealed the ultimate secret hidden in his heart. "Grandma, Chloe is actually the little girl who saved my life by the river 15 years ago," he murmured with deep emotion. Tears of pure joy streamed down the grandmother's face as she celebrated the beautiful destiny. They weren't strangers after all. They were bound by an absolute beautiful fate. The corporate war had ended in a perfect victory, and the billionaire's romantic pursuit of his wife had officially begun. Can you actually believe this? This man in a sharp suit with eyes cold as ice is actually Ethan, the Supreme Commander of the Vanguard Order. Right now, in a dim Miami warehouse facing a brainless challenge from the local cartel boss, Kevin Ethan just gave a cold, mocking smirk. "You two will be spending the rest of your lives in a wheelchair," he muttered. Kevin had never been insulted like this in his entire life. He cursed out loud and swung a massive punch right at Ethan's face, but he had no idea what kind of lethal force he was messing with. Ethan didn't even blink as he casually stepped aside. He countered with a devastating, lightning-fast kick, sending Kevin flying several yards through the air. Kevin's bodyguard saw his boss get wrecked and went completely red-eyed. He raised a heavy iron pipe and rushed straight toward Ethan. Ethan's gaze locked on him as he shifted like electricity. He delivered a flawless flying kick right into the guy's chest. With a sickening, thunderous crash, the bodyguard flew back like a kite with its string cut. He smashed right into a pile of cargo by Chloe's feet, coughing up blood and collapsing into a lifeless heap. Ethan looked down at the two broken men like they were stray dogs. His voice boomed with terrifying, unyielding authority. "Break your own hands and legs and crawl out of here right now. Otherwise, I'll personally snap every single bone in your bodies." Faced with that absolute terrifying display of power, the arrogant cartel boss completely lost his mind with fear. Just to stay alive, he ignored the blinding pain and grabbed his guard. They dragged each other out, faces twisted, crawling miserably from the room. But Ethan never could have guessed what would happen next. He risked everything to save the Miller family, but received zero gratitude. Chloe stood up, showing no appreciation whatsoever. Instead, she started screaming at Ethan in a hysterical, hateful rage. She blamed him, calling him a pathetic, low-life bartender. "Hitting Kevin is going to bring absolute ruin to our family," she shrieked. Ethan stared at the clueless, foolish woman and asked coldly, "Is that so?" But Chloe had completely lost her mind and swung her hand hard. She slapped Ethan right across the face with a loud smack. The force turned Ethan's head, and his expression instantly went dark. His eyes became terrifyingly cold as he locked his gaze onto her. "I make it a rule never to hit a woman," he said, speaking every single word deliberately. "But today, you just made me break that rule." Chloe flinched back, terrified by the sheer killing intent radiating from him. But she still tried to maintain her arrogant heiress act. She yelled that she knew powerful politicians and warned him to back off. Ethan just let out a cold laugh, mocking her arrogance. "This isn't bullying, sweetheart. This is a lesson," he countered. Looking at the stubborn, ungrateful woman, Ethan left her with one final warning. "Tomorrow at 7, the commander arrives in Los Angeles. He will be checking into the presidential suite at the Grand Viceroy Hotel. Show up, and you'll find out if I am lying." Back at the corporate office, Avery was sitting at her desk, pacing with anxiety. Right then, her phone started ringing loudly, and the caller ID showed Ethan. On the line, Ethan patiently tried to warn her one more time. He told her the commander would be at the Grand Viceroy Hotel at 7 tonight. "This is the absolute last chance for your family. Don't miss it," he urged. But because of the massive gap in their social status, Avery couldn't believe a broke bartender would know the commander's schedule. She blew up over the phone, mocking him with pure venom. "Have you completely lost your mind?" She snapped bitterly. "You've been stuck at the bottom so long you are hallucinating. You are a hero." She sharply warned Ethan to stop using these pathetic lies to get her attention. She even dropped a harsh final ultimatum before hanging up. "If I go there tonight and see nothing, I am blocking you forever." But before Avery could even press the end button, the real storm in Los Angeles arrived in the most brutal way possible. With a massive crash, the locked office door was kicked open. It was Carter, the man Ethan had thoroughly beaten at the warehouse earlier. He was wearing an expensive suit backed by a dozen heavy security guards. Carter wiped the blood from his lip, a twisted manic grin on his face. He slowly closed the distance toward the panicked Avery. He reached out a hand, tightly gripping her chin with terrifying force. He proudly revealed his true identity to her. "I rule the Los Angeles underworld. They call me the King of the Night." Carter smiled maliciously and leaned in close to Avery. I don't have a personal problem with you. Gorgeous, he whispered, but I already took Chloe, and I promised her I'd break you next. He waved his hand, signaling the guards to drag Avery out. Faced with a swarm of heavy, aggressive men grabbing at her, the helpless Avery was pushed straight into a deep abyss of despair. She looked at the phone, which was still connected, and screamed with all her might. Ethan, please help me. Carter just burst out into a loud, mocking laugh at her misery. Nobody in this world can save you from me today, he shouted, but he had absolutely no idea what was happening on the other side. Hearing the desperate, terrified cries of the woman he loved, Ethan's absolute rage completely overrode his sanity. His eyes turned colder than the deepest depths of hell. His knuckles popped loudly as he clenched his fists into iron. 2 words slipped through his teeth, enough to make the city tremble. You are dead. The wrath of a commander means a total bloodbath. Carter had completely crossed the absolute line. What awaited them now was swift, merciless judgment. Who dares touch my son? A booming voice roared. Marcus, the notorious crime lord of the city, slammed through the doors. He brought a small army of heavily armed security with him. His bloodied, arrogant son immediately scrambled over to complain. He pointed wildly at Ethan, demanding his father cut him to pieces. Faced with this massive wave of underworld pressure, Ethan didn't even blink. He calmly adjusted his suit jacket, completely unfazed by the threat. He pointed at himself and looked directly at the surrounding mob boss. I am right here. Come and take your best shot, Ethan said smoothly. Marcus was full of murderous rage until he actually saw Ethan's face. In a fraction of a second, all the color drained from his skin. His eyes looked like they were about to pop right out of his skull. Before the thugs could figure out what was happening, Ethan's voice cut through. Marcus, you wanted to cut me down, right? He asked coldly. Hearing that voice, Marcus's knees buckled instantly. He slammed heavily onto the floor, kneeling right at Ethan's feet. His entire body shook violently as he began frantically hitting the ground. Commander, no, please, I wouldn't dare, he begged in absolute terror. Even if I had 1,000 lives, I would never disrespect you. Everyone in the room stared, their jaws dropping at the sight. The ignorant son was completely losing his mind with confusion. He couldn't comprehend why his father, a legendary crime boss, would be groveling like a dog to a common bartender. Marcus felt his soul leaving his body from sheer terror at his son's words. He spun around and delivered a massive, bone-shattering slap to his son's face. You absolute idiot, Marcus screamed in a desperate panic. The commander is someone I can only look up to from the dirt. How dare you open your mouth to disrespect him? Ethan looked down at the pathetic crime family, his eyes flashing red. His voice was completely devoid of any human warmth. Marcus, do you really think a simple apology fixes this? He slowly laid out the cold, hard facts for them. Your arrogant son just tried to kidnap my woman. He even threatened to personally slide a knife into my chest. How do you suggest we settle this account, Marcus? Because if you don't handle it, I will personally wipe you out. Hearing the final ultimatum, Marcus's face turned completely ashen. But everything that happened today had a deeper story behind it. The scene shifted back to a quiet, secluded pavilion earlier that day. Ethan, dressed in a sharp black suit, was sitting across from Avery. He was quietly telling her about a strange encounter from his past. An old, enigmatic fortune teller had once given him a definitive prediction. The girl he had been searching for all his life was right here in Los Angeles, and the man said she would definitely appear in a crowded, noisy lounge. He told me to hide my identity and work there for 3 months to find you. Avery couldn't help but let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. You are incredibly naive, she said with a gentle, mocking smile. Believing a fortune teller and actually working as a bartender for 3 months. Ethan didn't argue against her playful mockery at all. Instead, he just locked his deep, intense gaze right onto her eyes. A slow, meaningful smile spread across his face as he spoke. That old man didn't lie to me even a single bit. He was completely right, because I actually found her. And that girl is you. The words hit Avery like a physical shock, leaving her mind blank. Her clear eyes widened in absolute stunned disbelief. Before she could even process it, Ethan gently reached into his jacket. He pulled out a faded 18-year-old pink embroidered handkerchief. He carefully placed the delicate cloth right into her hands. Ethan looked at the handkerchief, his eyes filled with years of longing. He softly recounted the memory from almost 2 decades ago. An orphan boy was being brutally beaten on the streets by a rich brat and his thugs. Just as the boy was about to be killed, a brave little girl intervened. She used her own small body to shield him and stop the violence. Before she left, she gently used this handkerchief to wipe the blood off him. Even though you dropped it, that boy made a silent promise that day. He swore to become a powerful man, find you, and protect you forever. Hearing the story, Avery felt tears instantly flood her eyes. She never imagined the bully back then would grow up to be the governor's son, and the broken boy she saved was the man standing right beside her now. But despite the massive emotion, the reality of her situation hit her hard. She slowly lowered her hands, a deep sadness washing over her face. "We belong to completely different worlds now, Ethan," she whispered. "Besides, my heart already belongs to someone else." She admitted the hero she wanted to follow for life was the legendary commander. Hearing the woman he loved reject him for the hero he secretly was, Ethan felt a sharp pang of bitter irony flash through his eyes, but he didn't reveal his secret or try to force her into anything. He just offered a gentlemanly, graceful smile to ease the tension. "I understand. You can't force love, so I will let you go. I truly hope you find the absolute happiness you are looking for." He stood up, adjusted his clothes, and took one last look at her. "I guess I'll see you at the Viceroy Hotel tonight then," he said quietly. Night fell, and the entire city was swallowed by brilliant neon lights. Inside the most luxurious presidential suite at the Grand Viceroy Hotel, Ethan stood silently in front of a massive floor-length mirror. He slowly raised his hands, elegantly placing the sleek black mask over his face. The mask symbolized the absolute terrifying power of the Vanguard Order. The reflection showed a man of absolute authority and ruthless execution. Ethan looked at his masked self and murmured with a mysterious smirk, "Avery, what will you do when you realize the bartender who served you is actually the commander you've been desperately searching for?" At that exact moment, completely unaware of the truth, Avery was walking down the long, quiet hallway of the hotel. She took a deep breath, raised her hand, and knocked on the door. The atmosphere in the Miller family estate was suffocatingly tense. Avery's uncle, Raymond, was pointing a finger right at her face, screaming. He accused her of working with a low-life bartender to beat up his daughter. Avery tried desperately to explain what had actually happened at the warehouse. Chloe was targeted by thugs and Ethan saved her life, she argued. Instead of being grateful, she hired people to hunt him down. But nobody in this toxic family cared about the actual truth. Chloe kept telling blatant lies and Raymond threatened a family trial. "We are stripping your titles and throwing you out of this house," he barked. Faced with the overwhelming pressure, Avery felt utterly broken inside. Her own father, Charles, finally cracked under the weight of the family. He turned to her and delivered a cold, heartless ultimatum. "If you don't hand that bartender over, you are no longer my daughter." Avery clenched her jaw tightly, refusing to betray the man who saved her. He did nothing wrong. She screamed back with tears in her eyes. Charles pointed furiously at the main entrance and yelled for her to get out. Just as Avery was collapsing into total hopeless despair, a powerful commanding roar echoed from the doorway. "Who dares touch her?" A man wearing a sleek, mysterious black mask walked slowly into the room. The air grew heavy as the legendary commander of the Vanguard Order entered. He completely ignored everyone else in the room and walked straight to Avery. His eyes softened completely as he looked down at her beautiful face. "You are still exactly as pure and kind as you were back then," he murmured. While Avery stared in absolute shock, he raised his hand and slid off the mask. The face underneath belonged to none other than Ethan, the bartender. The sudden revelation left Avery completely paralyzed with shock, but the shock didn't turn into happiness. It turned into pure, hot anger. She believed Ethan was completely toxic and manipulative. "You actually dared to fake being the commander just to trick me," she cried. She looked at the platinum seal in his hand like it was a cheap movie prop. Heartbroken and betrayed, Avery declared everything was over between them. She turned around sharply and walked out without looking back. Ethan stood in the empty room, a bitter taste in his mouth. He knew words were useless now, so he pulled out his encrypted phone. "Prepare the grandest dowry in the country and deliver it to the Millers. Let her see exactly who I am," he commanded coldly. But when Ethan walked back into the main hall, a worse storm hit. Raymond saw him return and immediately called for his security guards. "Kill this trash right now," the uncle screamed at the top of his lungs. Ethan just laughed coldly, tearing away Chloe's fake innocence. "If it wasn't for me, your daughter would be in a ditch right now," he stated, but the family refused to believe a single word from a commoner. Charles stepped forward, his expression cold and completely dismissive. "A broke loser like you will never be worthy of my daughter," the father said. Ethan stood tall, looking his future father-in-law straight in the eye. "Even without your family, I can give Avery the entire world," he said clearly. To the greedy relatives, it just sounded like the pathetic boasting of a loser. While the argument escalated, the old patriarch of the family stepped out. Grandpa Miller leaned on his cane, his face hard as stone. He completely ruined Avery's future with a single harsh declaration. "Avery is stripped of her CEO position and exiled from this family forever." The old man was confident because the governor's son had just walked in. Thomas, the arrogant billionaire heir, entered like he owned the place. Chloe immediately ran over to him like a dog, bragging about his power. "Thomas has already promised to save our family business," she gloated. But as soon as Thomas sat down, he looked right at Avery with a nasty grin. He wanted to settle an old score from their childhood days. Years ago, when he was bullying a boy, Avery had run him off the street. Now his father was the most powerful governor in the state. He looked at the helpless Avery with pure, disgusting malice. "Spend 3 nights in my bed, and I might consider helping your family. Touch my woman, and you die right where you stand." Ethan, who had been watching silently, completely snapped. A wave of freezing, terrifying, killing intent filled the entire room. Thomas laughed out loud like he had just heard the funniest joke. He ordered his top mercenary, the brutal assassin Jax, to break Ethan's legs. Jax smiled wickedly and lunged forward with blinding speed. But before anyone could even see Ethan move, a loud crash echoed. With a massive boom, Jax was kicked straight through the air like a broken ragdoll. He slammed hard into the concrete wall and dropped, completely paralyzed. An elite military fighter taken down with a single casual kick. Thomas's face instantly went white as a sheet from pure shock. But he still tried to use his father's political status to threaten him. "This is treason. You are dead," the governor's son shrieked. Ethan looked down at him, his eyes filled with absolute disdain. "The governor's mansion? I can flatten that place in 5 minutes." Terrified and enraged, Thomas pulled out his phone to call for an army. Ethan just made a calm gesture, inviting him to try his absolute best. "Go ahead and call your father. I'll be right here waiting," Ethan said. While Thomas frantically dialed, Avery rushed over, tears in her eyes. "Are you an absolute idiot?" she screamed at Ethan in a panic. "You just threatened the governor. You need to run for your life right now." Looking at the girl who was completely terrified for his safety, Ethan felt a warm, profound wave of affection fill his chest. "Your small kindness back then earned you my protection for life," he said softly. "I promised to make you the happiest woman in the world, and I meant it." Before he could even finish, heavy tactical boots thundered outside. The governor himself marched in, backed by a platoon of elite federal soldiers. Thomas scrambled over to his father, pointing wildly at Ethan. "This trash assaulted our men and threatened to destroy our mansion," he yelled. The governor's expression was incredibly dark, radiating massive authority. He walked straight up to Ethan, staring him down with intense pressure. "Did you really think you could disrespect my office and survive?" he asked, facing the man who held the power of life and death over the territory, surrounded by dozens of red laser sights painting his chest. Ethan just stood there calmly, his hands resting easily behind his back. A faint, cold smirk played on his lips as he uttered 3 words. "What if I do? Who dares touch my son?" A furious voice boomed through the hall. Marcus, the notorious syndicate boss, stormed in with a dozen armed thugs. His bloodied son ran over to complain, demanding Ethan be taken out. Faced with this heavy underworld presence, Ethan didn't even blink. He calmly gestured for Marcus to step up and try his best. But the moment Marcus actually recognized Ethan's face, he froze. His eyes widened in pure, unadulterated terror as his breathing stopped. Under Ethan's freezing gaze, Marcus's knees gave out completely. He dropped heavily to the floor, kneeling right in front of the young man. "Commander, please mercy." mercy. I didn't know, he cried hysterically. I swear to God, I would never disrespect the Vanguard order. The arrogant son was completely speechless, unable to process the sight. He couldn't understand why his powerful father was begging a bartender. Marcus spun around and delivered a devastating backhand to his son's face. Shut your mouth, you absolute idiot, the mob boss roared in fear. The commander controls the forces that govern this entire nation. Kneel down right now and beg for your pathetic life. Ethan looked down at the criminal duo, his voice completely dead. Do you honestly think a simple apology saves your life, Marcus? He laid out the cold reality of their situation. Your son tried to kidnap my woman and put a bullet in my head. How do you want to settle this debt before I lose my patience? Because if you can't fix it, I will personally eliminate your entire line. But Ethan's presence at the lounge had been planned long ago. The memory flashed back to the quiet, empty pavilion from earlier. Ethan had been calmly explaining the truth to Avery. An old seer had told him his true love was living in this city, and the man specified she would be found in a busy downtown lounge. He told me to wait 3 months as a bartender to find you. Avery had just laughed it off, thinking it was a ridiculous story. You are so naive to believe a fake psychic, she had joked, and you actually spent 3 months serving drinks for that. Ethan didn't try to defend the old man's prediction at all. He just kept his intense, burning gaze locked onto her face. A gentle, knowing smile appeared as he spoke the truth. That old man didn't miss a single detail. He was entirely right, because the wait is over. The girl I was looking for is you. The words had left Avery completely stunned, her mind racing. While she sat frozen, Ethan reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out the faded 18-year-old pink handkerchief. He gently pressed the delicate cloth right into her trembling hands. He told her about the little boy who was saved from a brutal beating. He spoke of the brave girl who shielded him and wiped his injuries. He had sworn that day to grow up, find her and protect her for life. Avery instantly remembered the bully was Thomas, the governor's son, and the broken boy she had helped was the man standing before her. But the weight of her current reality quickly crushed her joy. She slowly lowered her gaze, a bitter expression on her face. We come from entirely different worlds now, Ethan, she sighed. She confessed her heart belonged to the legendary commander of the country. Hearing his own woman reject him for his secret alter ego, Ethan felt the sharp, humorous irony touch his soul, but he didn't reveal the truth or push her for answers. He just gave a respectful nod, wishing her the best in life. Let's meet at the Viceroy Hotel tonight then, he suggested calmly. As darkness fell, Ethan stood before the mirror in the presidential suite. He carefully secured the sleek black mask over his face. Avery, how will you react when you find out your bartender is the commander? At that exact moment, Avery knocked softly on the door. The massive double doors swung open slowly. Avery stepped into the luxurious suite and instantly froze on the spot. Ethan was standing in the center of the room, taking off his mask. He wore a custom-tailored suit, radiating pure, undeniable power. He walked over to the stunned woman and gently took her hand. Avery looked at the hero she admired, realizing he was her protector all along. Her eyes filled with absolute overwhelming disbelief. Ethan smiled down at her with pure affection and spoke softly. Do you still think I am a liar? Will you marry me, Avery? The air inside the main room turned freezing cold. Donald, a high-ranking military officer, pointed his weapon at a woman. He screamed furiously, demanding to know who she thought she was. He had no idea he was dealing with a force of absolute destruction. The woman in black didn't even flinch at the sight of the gun. She looked at him like he was already dead, her lips curling into a smirk. A mere captain dares to show his teeth here, she said mockingly. She turned respectfully toward the man standing right behind her. Commander, should I eliminate this trash right now? He is just an insect. Why should we waste our breath on him? Ethan didn't even look up at the arrogant officer standing there. Donald didn't realize the danger and just burst out laughing. To him, these two were just pathetic actors playing a role. Impersonating the commander of the Vanguard Order is a death sentence, he warned. My men will tear your entire family apart for this joke. Right then, Charles saw an opportunity to look powerful. He stepped forward, bragging about his new connection to the officer. This loser Ethan is my son-in-law. The father yelled out proudly. If you don't kneel down right now, he will destroy you. Donald, But before Charles could finish gloating, Donald lost his patience. He swung his hand and delivered a brutal slap, sending Charles spinning. "You old fool, you actually believe these actors." Donald spat. He turned back to Ethan, a mocking smile on his face. "Come on, son-in-law, show me your real power, save your family." Ethan's expression went entirely dark at the officer's arrogance. A low-level military man was acting like a king in front of supreme authority. He looked directly into Donald's eyes and gave a final warning. "I'll give you exactly 3 seconds to drop to your knees. Do it and you might survive. Refuse and you go to federal prison." But Donald was too drunk on his own power to listen to common sense. He roared an order to his tactical guards to break Ethan's legs. "Let's see if this bartender can still talk big on the floor," he screamed. Faced with a dozen assault rifles aimed directly at his chest, Ethan calmly reached into his vest and pulled out a solid gold dragon medallion. It was the legendary command seal of the Vanguard Order. The moment Donald saw the gold dragon, his entire body went rigid. The color vanished from his face and his hands began to shake violently. Ethan smiled coldly, his voice dripping with pure sarcasm. "Impressive. You actually recognize the seal, Captain," he remarked. Donald's mind was filled with terror, but his pride forced him to deny it. He turned to his guards, screaming hysterically that it was a fake. A failing family like the Millers could never contact the commander, he yelled. "A fake? Then take a look at this one." The woman in black smiled sharply and revealed her own silver phoenix seal. Donald completely broke down, his eyes widening in absolute horror. "The phoenix seal. You are the legendary General Sierra," he gasped. Sierra didn't waste another second talking to the corrupt officer. She shifted her weight and delivered a brutal lightning-fast sidekick. The force of the impact sent Donald flying across the room. He smashed heavily into a table, coughing up blood as he fell. Right then, a loud announcement echoed from the hallway outside. "Commander, all corrupt officers have been detained for federal transfer." General Briggs marched into the hall with a company of heavily armed soldiers. Seeing the legendary general appear, Donald lost the last bit of his hope. He crawled miserably over to Ethan's boots, his entire body shaking. He finally realized the man before him was the absolute ruler of the military. Ethan looked down at the broken officer, his voice cutting like a knife. "You wear the uniform of this nation, yet you act like a thug," Ethan said. "You abuse your power, threaten citizens, and ignore the law. What did you think would happen when the truth came out?" Ethan's eyes were completely emotionless as he delivered the final sentence. "Strip him of his rank and transfer him to maximum security forever," he ordered. The disgraced captain wept openly, begging for a second chance. But the guards dragged him out like garbage, his screams fading away. Charles watched the corrupt officer get taken down and cheered out loud. With the threat gone, Ethan's expression softened as he turned around. "Clear the room. I need to discuss our future with my wife," he told the generals. Sierra and Briggs saluted sharply and led their men outside. Only Ethan and Avery remained in the quiet, empty hall. But before Ethan could step closer to her, heavy footsteps approached. A loud, hearty laugh echoed from the doorway of the inner office. "How can you talk about a wedding without inviting me?" the old man asked. Ethan looked toward the voice, and his powerful aura vanished instantly. The Supreme Leader bowed deeply, his expression full of profound respect. "Master, I didn't expect to see you here tonight," Ethan said humbly. The old man in the traditional robe stroked his beard and laughed. "My prediction was completely accurate, wasn't it?" he asked proudly. Ethan nodded sincerely, expressing his deep gratitude to his teacher. But the old man's next words left him completely speechless. "Once you two are married and have a child, that baby belongs to me. I will take the child to the mountains to train them personally," he stated. Ethan panicked slightly, trying to argue against the sudden demand. "Master, you can't be serious. I can't just give you my child," he protested. The old man reminded him of a promise made years ago in exchange for help. "A supreme commander cannot break his word," the master countered sharply. Ethan couldn't find a response and looked at Avery for assistance, but his pride was still wounded, and he questioned the old man's skills. "Even with your advanced training, could a child ever surpass my level?" he asked. The old man just laughed louder, his eyes reflecting absolute confidence. He placed his hands behind his back and looked down at his student. "You have reached the absolute peak of human capability, Ethan. But remember, no matter how strong you are still just a man. I have moved past that boundary into something entirely different." How can a mere man compete with the extraordinary? Ethan looked at his eccentric teacher, wondering if he was just talking crazy. The old man read his thoughts instantly and patted his shoulder with a smile. You don't believe me? Let's make a quick wager then, the master offered. In exactly 3 seconds, your secure line will ring with an emergency call. When that happens, you'll know every word I said was the absolute truth. Before Ethan could even open his mouth to argue, his encrypted phone vibrated. A harsh, high-priority alert tone echoed through the quiet room. Ethan's heart skipped a beat as he answered the secure line immediately. As the emergency brief played out, his expression turned incredibly grave. He didn't waste a single second on small talk, his voice turning to ice. Understood. I am moving out right now, he responded sharply. He hung up the phone and stepped directly in front of Avery, taking her hands. His eyes were filled with deep regret, but his voice remained absolute. The Pentagon just issued a red alert. A massive foreign force is crossing the border. The country is in extreme danger, and I have to return to headquarters tonight. Hearing about the massive military invasion, Avery forgot all her past anger. Her eyes welled with tears, her heart filled with intense worry for him. She squeezed his hands tightly, looking up at him with pure devotion. Go do your duty, but promise me you'll come back alive, she whispered. Ethan felt a massive wave of pride and determination surge through his chest. He pulled the woman he loved into a fierce, protective embrace. He leaned down and whispered his final sacred vow against her ear. Once the enemy is destroyed and the borders are secure, I will return. We will have the biggest wedding this country has ever seen, I promise. Under the master's knowing smile, the commander prepared for war once more. Their story paused on the brink of an epic conflict, a true legend in the making.